Tonight, this week's Aquaman is interrupted for a story about the others. This week's Batman Incorporated is interrupted for a story about the Batman of Japan. And this week's Green Lantern is interrupted by Geoff Johns patting himself on the back for doing such a good job. All that and more tonight on the Not So New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 90 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I'm going to keep this real short because we have a whole lot of comics to get through and there is nowhere near enough time. In fact, this episode is probably going to be like an hour longer than it usually is, just because there is so much. So this week we have the finale of Geoff Johns' run on Green Lantern, and as such there's two other Green Lantern books to go with it. We have the final issue of Firestorm, the final issue of Savage Hawkman, the first issue of Green Team, Teen Trillionaires, and then we also got Batman Incorporated, Batman the Dark Knight, Talon, Superman, Aquaman, Flash, Justice League, Teen Titans, and Justice League Dark. I think that's everything, but regardless, we're going to go ahead and jump right on into the whole reason I am wearing this shirt this season to begin with, Green Lantern. Green Lantern number 20, written by Geoff Johns, art primarily by Doug Mahnke, but we also have guest artists of Patrick Gleason, Cully Hamner, Aaron Kuder, Jerry Ordway, Ivan Reyes, and Ethan Van Sciver. This is, of course, the ending of not only Wrath of the First Lantern, but all of Geoff Johns' Green Lantern work, even pre-New 52. So it's going to take a while because this is a super oversized issue. So we pick up Beyond Tomorrow at some point in the future, and we see a whole bunch of new Green Lantern recruits are being sworn in. They're saying the oath and all that. And one of them, named Lantern Snow, rushes over to talk to Lantern Taurus, who is the bookkeeper for the Green Lanterns. And he's like, hey, I'm part of the Green Lantern Corps now. Tell me the story. And Taurus is like, oh, you mean the story of Hal Jordan? As they go to this massive Green Lantern book of history. And he's like, yeah, everybody wants to hear this thing. So let's begin at the beginning. Let's go back to the start, because Hal Jordan's story begins and ends on rebirths. Get it? So he's like, yep, nope. So he got his ring. He did some crazy stuff. Coast City was destroyed. He was obsessed, or he became possessed by Parallax and became like a villain. That happened for a while, and then he died. But then he came back and overcame Parallax, and that was his first rebirth. And then everything happened. So we see they fought back Parallax, they battled the Manhunters, the Green Lantern Corps didn't trust him, but he gained their respect. Sinestro made his own corps, and they had a war. Red Lanterns became a thing, the Orange Lantern became a thing, and then Blackest Night happened. And then, according to the story, the New 52 started, and it's everything that we've covered in this series so far, where Sinestro became a Green Lantern again, they battled against the Dark, was it Black Hand, I guess? And then they were sucked into the Dead Zone. And Hal Jordan went and he jumped off a cliff in the Dead Zone and he died. And then we cut to Sinestro, who is among the remains of Korugar. He rips off his Green Lantern ring, starts choking in space. And we see back and forth, Sinestro gets a Yellow Lantern ring and Hal gets a Black Lantern ring put on his finger. So then we go over to Oa, where the Volthoom is there, and he's just basically taunting the Guardians. He's like, hey, I picked up the the Great Heart, and it was where you guys put your emotions into when all of this began. And when you made it, it corrupted me because it spit out the first ring, and that was too much for any person to have. But now I've got it back, the very first lantern, which is what the Great Heart is, and I'm going to use it to A, get my ring back, which apparently one of the Guardians swallowed, I guess, so he just reaches down the throat and pulls it out, and B, he gives the Guardians back their emotions, and they're all just like, oh, I feel regret. This was a bad move. And he's like, yeah, you have no idea. So I'm going to use the big Green Lantern battery, and I'm just going to like reform the universe and all of existence as I see fit. And at that point, the Green Lantern Corps steps in, led by Guy, and he's like, nope, we're going to beat you up first. And immediately, Volthoom's like, maybe you've forgotten, I'm like all powerful, and I can make my constructs real. So then we see inside the dead zone real quick, and Hal came back. Black Hand disintegrated into nothing because he doesn't have his black ring anymore. Hal's just standing there talking to Tomar Ray, I believe. And he's like, okay, yeah, you came back to life, kinda. So what are you going to do to get out of this place? And he's like, I'm going to phone a friend. And we see him using his black ring to contact the Indigo tribe, who then channels the Black Lantern energy briefly. We'll get back to them. So Green Lantern Corps is taking on heavy losses off panel, and all of a sudden the Red Lanterns come in, and they're like, hey, back off, Green Lanterns, you guys are too weak. This requires a Red Lantern's touch. And he walks up, Atrocity just goes up to the First Lantern, snaps his neck, and was like, that was easy. I didn't think it'd be that simple. And then First Lantern's like, okay, did you really think that was gonna, seriously? And he just blows away most of the Red Lantern Corps. The Green Lantern Nort shows up. Doesn't really matter. He's just here. They just want you to know he's here. And then we see that Kyle has arrived with the Star Sapphires and the Blue Lantern Corps. And he's like, hey, we got some backup here. They're all going to come up. And Guy holds Atrocitus at construct point and is like, hey, let's make sure we're on the same page here. And Atrocitus is like, hey, man, I trust you 100%. Once a Red Lantern, always a Red Lantern. So they all use their rings simultaneously, aimed at, I think, Mogo, or they're on Mogo and they aim it up at the First Lantern. Hard to say, but regardless, Mogo focuses all of it in order to aim it at the First Lantern. And immediately it backfires. Like, it's a cool image, but it immediately backfires, and he's just like, okay, that kind of hurt, but seriously, you guys can't beat me. And then all of a sudden, giant Yellow Lantern comes down and Sinestro lands a few punches on him. And he's just like, oh, before I kill you, I'm going to see that fear in your eyes. And First Lantern just reaches out, grabs the globe of Corrigar out of Sinestro's chest. He just makes it real. And he's like, I know I feel fear. I'm not ashamed of that. I own up to it. But are you willing to admit your greatest fear, that Corrigar is dead? And as they're just standing there talking, the Indigo tribe shows up, and Sinestro's like, dude, I haven't finished my bit yet. Let me do my thing. And Indigo tribe's like, oh, we're not here to fight. We're just here to help out a friend. And they channel the Black Lantern energy to open up a portal to let out Hal Jordan, leading the entire Black Lantern Corps to attack Volthoom. And while all the monsters are attacking Volthoom, basically Hal goes up to Sinestro and just like, hey man, I had to become a Black Lantern because you left me there. And regardless, you can't handle this on your own. And Sinestro's like, excuse me, and blasts him briefly. So then Volthoom destroys the entire Black Lantern Corps. He goes after Hal. And he does that thing where he like splits his timeline. And he's like, you have done a lot in your life. But here's the thing. You have a lot of willpower in you, and I can exploit that. I can use your power because you got something special, kid. But I need a moment of fear to reach back into, a moment that I can exploit. And Hal's like, oh God, are you going to pull back the moment I was parallaxed? And he's like, nah, that's too easy. I'm going to go back to when you were really scared. And he goes back to when Hal was a kid and his dad just died. And we see adult Hal trying to tell young him, like, hey, don't listen to that guy. He's an ass. But Volthoom's like, hey, you miss your dad? I can bring him back. I'm an angel. All you got to do is wish for it really, really hard. And so young Hal uses all of his willpower to wish for it, and Volthoom uses that as the point where he can reach inside of Hal and pull out the echo of, I'm just going to say it, quote, an echo of the very first spark of existence, the light of creation. The universe is mine to remake, as he literally pulls out the universe in his hand. And Kyle starts getting a little bit angsty because he's like, I'm pretty sure this guy's tearing apart all of reality. We may need to stop him right now. So Sinestro goes over to his yellow battery and he just starts saying his oath into it, and out pops Parallax. And Parallax, he tells him like, well, go ahead, possess me. It's what you got to do. And so Parallax goes into Sinestro's body, but he's like, I have stronger will than you're used to. I will control you, foul beast. So now he has the ability to control Parallax. He goes after Volthoom and seemingly rips out his heart. It's a bit unclear. It's yellow for some reason. The Guardians are spooked because they're like, he could kill us right now. Like, he has the power to just do that. This isn't good. So, at that point, Volthoom is being dressed down by Sinestro. He's like, I am the one who has more power. And he's like, are you... Guys, seriously, I am not just an ordinary lantern. I have the power of a god. And he grows to this massive size and basically stomps Sinestro for a second. He attacks everybody else. And Hal is like, okay, I didn't want to do this, but I got to do this. And he goes back into the dead zone briefly. He sees the ghost of his dad who tells him that he's proud of him and then directs him over to the Tomb of Necron, and Hal raises up his Black Lantern ring at it. And we see back in the real world, he has summoned giant Necron to attack the giant First Lantern. And everyone's like, all right, this may have gotten a bit out of hand. So Necron doesn't want to listen to Hal. Hal says, well, I've got willpower. And Necron's like, fair enough, kid. So he attacks the First Lantern, but they explicitly say that if they destroy him now, the entire universe could be destroyed. So they have to drain him of his emotional energy first, which they just do. No problem. He's now human, and Necron just cuts him in half, allowing him to die. End of the First Lantern. So at that point, the Volthoom's ring apparently is banished back to his home universe. Another ring is searching throughout the Green Lantern, someone to replace it. And we see Hal talking to the younger version of himself, and he's being like, hey, kid, I know you're scared, but things are going to get better. And the young version's like, Dad, is that you? I miss you, Dad. And the kid starts to fade away as Hal Jordan gets selected by the ring that was floating around to become a Green Lantern again. Apparently, it brings him back to life, and Necron's then sent back into Dead World. So Hal hugs Carol, and everyone's like, hey, we did it. That's great. Everyone's awesome. Green Lantern saved the day. And Red Lanterns are like, excuse me. Green Lantern saved. That was Red Lantern's help. And then all of a sudden, the Yellow Lanterns show up from under the ground, and they all start attacking the other corps. And they're all ready to fight, and Kyle's like, wait a minute, hold on, this is stupid. Why would the Yellow Lanterns... Sinestro's just distracting us. He's going off to kill the Guardians, because he totally has the power to do that now. Hal, do you want to go take care of Sinestro? And so he flies off to stop him. We see Sinestro just standing outside the door of the Guardians, and he's like, oh, you want to do this, Hal? You really want to stop me? Fine, let us have our final battle. And so they fight for a little bit, and Sinestro is basically like, why do you want to save the Guardians? They clearly suck. And Hal's like, I don't want to save the Guardians. I want to save you. That's all I've ever wanted. You can be a good Green Lantern again. And he's like, no, I can't. I have nothing left. That's why I had to kill the Guardians. And Hal's like, I'm sorry, did you just say that in past tense? And he's like, yeah, I did it while everyone else was distracted. Like, while you were taking the Necron thing, I just snuck over here and killed all the Guardians. And he's like, Sinestro, Jesus, all right. And we do see that apparently one of them was left for Atrocitus to kill, because why not? But as Sinestro is going through and killing the Guardians via flashback here, we see that Ganthet is just standing there. He's accepted his death. He's like, I have nothing left. I've got my emotions back. I'm back to the Ganthet I was before the New 52. But, like, I've lost it all. So, yeah, just do it, Sinestro. So, at that point, Sinestro's like, here's the thing. I'm going to leave. I'm leaving the Sinestro Corps under the guide of Arkillo. He'll be the lead of that. I'm just going to... This universe is too much. Like, it's too little for me, honestly. I'm just going to go off and, be a monk or whatever. And Hal's like, hey, Sinestro, were we ever really friends? And Sinestro says, that's a sad part, Hal. We'll always be friends. And so he disappears. And by the way, the other Guardians that were locked in that tomb for like however many years, they're now going to be the new Guardians that are like running the core. So that's a thing. Regardless, we cut back to the framing device. Book guy tells him like, yeah, well, that's the story. That's how it all happened. The end. And then Lantern Snow is like, well, now hold on. I want to see the where are they now section. Like, I want to see what they did after the core. Like, what happened then? And he's like, fine. All right. Here's what happened. Guy became like a disgruntled biker guy, an intergalactic biker who just shares his old war stories. We see him in a bar, and all of a sudden this guy, Bolfunga, comes up and like is about to attack Guy, and Guy just one punches him out. We see that John and Fatality went back to Earth, and he became a senator, and he is far more remembered for the awesome things he did on Earth as a senator. Kyle literally became Space Jesus. He just used his White Lantern ring to heal everybody that came up to him with a touch. So, yeah. And Simon Baz, basically, it hints that he is going to be the one who trains the first female Lantern, Jessica Cruz, and we see that he unlocked potential of everyone that he met. And we see Atrocitus never quite stopped being a Red Lantern. Larfleeze, he got his family back, but he still is an Orange Lantern. Saint Walker, he got a new family, but he's still a Blue Lantern. And Indigo Tribe, the leader of her, what's her name? Irok. I still can't remember how to say that. She eventually got totally healed, took off her Indigo Tribe ring, and is still loving and compassionate. And then we see that Hal and Carol got married. They had a kid named Martin Jordan, and they had kids as well, and they lived happily ever after. The end. And he closes the book at the end. And Snow's like, well, wait a minute, hold on. What about Sinestro? What happened to him? And the book owner is like, I think those pages got burned out a long time ago. We don't need to know about Sinestro. And we do see the hand of the bookkeeper is like very toned the same way as Sinestro's skin. So then we get one last flashback of Sinestro going into a cave where Larfleeze and Ganthet are. And Larfleeze is like, all right, as long as we got a trade, it better be a fair trade. And Ganthet's like, why in the world am I still alive? And he's like, because of this. And Larfleeze opens up his sack, and inside is Sade, the guardian that Ganthet loved. And so now they're back together, and Sinestro tells him, you will never come back. You are going to go to the far edge of the universe. You're going to live your life together, and I'm never going to see you again. Got that? And he's like, why are you saving us? And Sinestro just tells him, I know what it's like to lose everything. And he convinces Larfleeze that this is an okay trade because now Larfleeze has the greatest secret in the universe. And Larfleeze is like, I much rather material things, but okay, why not? So at that point, the bookkeeper says, well, Sinestro doesn't matter. What happened to him doesn't matter. This was the story of Hal Jordan. And we see a double-page spread of him becoming the Green Lantern back when Abin Sur crashed, and then a double-page spread of all the Lantern Corps, and it says, he was the Lantern that started an everlasting fire. The end. Good Lord, that was long. Okay, so it was an ending. It was good. It was a good ending. I don't want to say, like, this wasn't a bad book. I think that the first Lantern wrap-up as a whole was kind of weak because it was more so just a, hey guys, let's take a look at all the things we did. Let's go down memory lane. What all did I do with Hal Jordan? And it was fine in that regard, but I came into this story 2/3 of the way through, post Blackest Night. Like, when the New 52 started, so I barely got exposure to almost anything that they were bringing back in this book. They brought back, Sinestro's got Parallax, and the Necron showed up. There's no connection to that for me. As a reader who hopped on with New 52, that doesn't quite work. And I understand. This is a love letter that Geoff Johns wrote to all of Geoff Johns' Green Lantern run. It's not supposed to be for the people who just jumped onto the New 52. But I can't base my opinion off of 2/3 of this run that I have not read. So based off of what I read, it's fine. It just is a little bit of a letdown for the first Lantern stuff. I don't think that really sold it as well as it could. Even right up to the end, it didn't feel like they had to overcome some massive odds and they just barely squeaked out a victory. It just felt like they had to keep throwing stuff at the dartboard until eventually something stuck, and that something was Necron. So, yeah. Overall, art is great. I like how the characters ended up, even though because of the way that comic books are written, there's no way that any of that stuff is actually ever going to happen. Like, they're never going to age up Guy into an old grizzled biker in a space bar. Like, that's just, I don't know. It's weird to me that they're saying this stuff immediately happened afterwards, and yet clearly we're never going to see it. But yeah, I mean, it's good. It's a solid wrap up. I don't think that it was disappointing at all, but I also think that it only really hits as hard as it does if you've really stuck with it since the beginning of Geoff Johns' run. So with that in mind, I'll give this one an 8.5. Still think it's good. Still think it's very solid. Could have trimmed out a little bit in the middle there, but hey, Green Lanterns, it was a great run. Red Lanterns number 20, written by Peter Milligan, art by Will Conrad. So the very last thing that happened was Green Lantern number 20. All that happened, and then at the very end of that, Atrocitus was left with his very own Guardian to kill. And we see it's like the stereotypical one you think of that's not Ganthet. And we see he tells the Red Lanterns, hey guys, just like go back to Yzmal, do your own thing. You're free to do whatever. So he then gives chase to this lantern. And then we get a whole bunch of different plots here, where first and foremost is Kim, the lady that Rancor was trying to woo. She is getting attacked by the guy who was basically hitting on her before, and he's, upset. He's like, oh, you're stuck up. Am I not good enough for you? And he goes and basically assaults her. And it jumps between the different storylines, but we do see that Rancor basically jumps into the middle of this and goes down to Kim and is just like, Kim, that guy, he hurt you. Like, allow me to help. And she's like, Jack, what are you doing back here? He's like, no, there is no Jack, only Rancor. And so he picks her up, takes her downtown, and he basically makes a construct that scares him bad enough that his heart is about to stop. And he's like, this is what you want, right? And she's like, no, why would you, like, yeah, he's a prick and he deserves to go to jail, but not to be killed in this. And he's like, I don't you feel rage towards him, Kim? And she's like, dude, rage is for toddlers and 30-year-olds who don't, know how to control their emotions. If you honestly think that rage is all that's consuming, then you're not even human anymore. Go back to your own people. And Rancor's like, all right, fine. Well, she's not going to see either of us yet. Isn't that right, Steven? And then I think he just kills Steven. So then the secondary plot is, as the Red Lanterns arrive back on Yzmal, the inversions, the guys that, the demons with magic and all that Atrocitus was a part of, they are trying to cast their magic at the Red Lantern power battery. It ain't working. And Roy Soom is like, yeah, this sucks. Like, guys, I think we're a bit stale. This isn't quite working. And then all the Red Lanterns show up and they're like, oh, but we can use our magic on them. And so they start to cast their magic spells, and all of them just start dropping out of the sky and screaming in pain, except for Bleeze, who's like, wait a minute. This is stupid. Your old magic is just that, old and dumb, and it doesn't even work on us. This is barely trickery. Your magic's like a stale fart. That's an actual quote. And so Bleeze goes up to Roy Soom and is just like, see, you can't do anything to me. As long as I've got rage power in me, your magic does nothing. And Roy Soom is like, yeah, guys, I think we're a little bit out of touch. We will be back. And they just smoke bomb out of there. And at that point, all the Red Lanterns are like, hey, Bleeze, you want to be our new leader since Atrocitus may not be coming back? And Bleeze is like, no, none for me, thank you. Rancor, how about you? You got that weird human conniving stuff? And he's like, none for me, thank you. So then we go back to Atrocitus, who is still chasing down the Guardian, uses his napalm blood spewing thing to take down the Guardian. And the Guardian's like, okay, you got me, and you're right. I was awful. I've done horrible things. I am ashamed. I'm so miserable, and you deserve to kill me. And Atrocitus is like, yeah, I am gonna kill you. And he's like, do it now, kill me now. And he's like, all right, well, come on. Yeah, I'm pitying you now. Like, you're disgusting. Like, the fact this is the first time you felt emotions and you wasted it all on, you just want to just on a snivel? Like, that's gross. You're disgusting. In fact, the only thing that I think would actually get you more punishment, the real justice, would be letting you live with all the crimes you committed now that you can actually feel regret for them. And he thinks about, like, his wife and, like, his planet and how they were all killed by the Manhunters, and he's like, but this is something that needs to happen to finally end old Atrocitus, to finally make new Atrocitus his own thing. And so he puts his hand through the Guardian's head and he says, I release both of us. So then Atrocitus comes back to Yzmal. Scalox is just kind of like screaming for no reason. He's like, I'm sorry, Atrocitus. We thought you were gone. We nominated Bleez to be your replacement. And Bleez is like, yeah, but like, I don't want it. I'm totally in on you, Atrocitus. And Rancor, because the way this was structured, he's just coming back from the Kim thing. And he comes back, and Atrocitus is like, hey, Rancor, here's the thing. You've been telling me how I've been trapped by my rage, and you know what? I figured it out. You were right. I was. And now I'm able to use my rage for bigger things. And thank you, human, for doing that. And Rancor's like, human? There are no humans here. Because he's still very angsty. So, yeah. It says never the end, but like, yeah, it's the end. It's okay. I feel like Atrocitus has gone through like 5 different epiphanies just over the course of what I've been reading, where he's like, oh, of course, this is how it must be. And like each time it feels like he's saying the same thing, but he still just isn't doing it. Like he's like, but I can use my rage for bigger things. It's like, that's what issue 1 was. Where you said, hey, the Red Lanterns can be a force of justice. Like, you did that. I don't understand what's changed here. The only thing is that he's finally managed to get his revenge on the Guardians. That's it. That's the only thing that's changed. But him as a person, I don't see what's different. So, overall, art's fine. Stories are fine. I actually do like how they managed to pull up the inversion thing without actually ending it yet, just making it a threat that's further down the road. Hopefully it actually comes back in a meaningful way. So I'm up for that. Overall, I'm just going to give it a flat 7, and it's only because it feels like it should be this big thing, but I don't feel like any character has actually changed in this issue. They all feel the exact same way they have been. Where Rancor is still like, I'm no longer a person, I am Rancor. And Atrocitus is like, oh, by the way, guys, we're using rage for good things now. It's always been that way. Nothing has changed. Green Lantern New Guardians number 20, written by Tony Bedard, art by Andre Guinaldo. So last issue was Green Lantern number 20. All the big wrap-up events happened. And then this one is opening with Kyle. He's painting back on Earth. We get some narration of 2 people talking. We don't know who they are. And they're basically like, oh, well, ever since Kyle became a White Lantern, he came back, he's painting. And he's just letting all of his emotions out freely. And we see him drawing a picture of Ganthet. And then we see more drawings in his studio of all the people he came across his journey. And we see Saint Walker, Arkillo, Bleez, Glomulus, Monk, Indigo One, Atrocitus, Glarfleece, Fatality, Carol, and Sade. And he's like, all right, Ring, if I am savior of the universe and Space Jesus, why do I still feel so empty? And the Ring's like, I don't know. What, do you expect me to know that? So we get to 5 hours earlier where he's making his way back to Earth, and Saint Walker comes out from Earth, and he's like, oh, hey, Kyle, yeah, because of Green Lantern Corps, I ended up on Earth for like an issue. Don't worry about it. Anyway, I waited here for you. What's up, man? And he's like, I don't know. I just, we broke up the band. The team's no longer a thing, but I still feel there's emptiness in me. And he's like, okay, well, your entire purpose since issue 1 has been to save Ganthet. And he's dead. So yeah, that's kind of an issue. That, you know, what do you think you're gonna do now? And they basically just fly across the earth, sharing philosophies with each other as they look in on all the different Lantern Corps, and then Kyle saves some people. So he looks in on the Blue Lantern Corps, and he's like, oh yeah, you guys set up a new planet. And they're like, yeah, we lost our planet in Blue Beetle. Can you believe that? It's like, yeah, it's kind of an event. We see Carol and Hal got together. Atrocitus apparently is more focused than ever. Kyle sent Glomulus back to Larfleeze, but now he's not obeying Larfleeze, so it's kind of its own special little hell for him. They come across an oil rig on fire, and Kyle makes a Green Lantern construct, and St. Walker just asks, hey, you're still able to just do Green Lanterns? I thought everything was going to be like White Lantern. And he's like, nope, I guess that's not how it works. Beats me, though. They look in on Indigo Tribe because they're like, oh yeah, Indigo Tribe can call all of the Lantern powers. Why are they any different than the White Lanterns? And they don't ever answer that question, which really like bugs me. The fact that they don't explain how they're different. But apparently the leader of the Indigo Tribe can like see that they're spying. So it's like, oops, sorry. All right, bye. So they make their way to an active war zone. And Kyle's like, you know, Atrocitus made me like hurt a lot of people the last time I was in this situation, but maybe I'll try something different. And he uses the power of the Sapphires to force them all to love their enemies, and so everyone's just hugging and like sharing toys and stuff. And he's like, yeah, maybe I'll just use this power on the entire Earth and make everybody love each other. And St. Walker's like, he's like, nah, I'm kidding. I would never do that. I'm not the first Lantern. I'm not making people my emotional guinea pigs. And they're like, oh yeah, first Lantern, man. He did some messed up stuff to us. And Kyle's like, yeah, no, he made me live with my ex-girlfriend and then made me happy with my dad who walked out. And St. Walker's like, the nerve. How dare he? But then they make the point, like, you know, he did give us, like, some time with them. And he's like, no, but my dad was a letdown. He's just a mechanic. Like, if he was going to leave, he may as well have been something big or important. And St. Walker makes the point of, like, look, he made me see my dead family. And, like, I got to spend more time with them. So maybe, you know, he lets you know where your dad is and like what he's doing. Maybe you can use that as a gift for the future. And Kyle's like, okay, yeah, I see where you're going with this. And he gets home, and St. Walker flies away to go build the Blue Lantern Corps. And he paints a picture of his father's garage. And then we see at the actual garage in Arizona, the Mr. Rayner gets a customer, walks in, and he's like, oh, hey, partner, didn't hear your car pull up. And we see it's Kyle, and he recognizes it as Kyle. And he's like, oh, hey, what do you want? And he's like, oh, don't worry. No, like, it's nothing bad. I just was hoping we could get to know each other. And he's like, oh, well, I don't know what to say. He's like, well, say you don't have plans for dinner tonight. And we see the two voices talking again. And they're like, yeah, you know, I think Kyle's going to be okay without us. I mean, we raised him right, and we just got to trust that he is going to be his own man. And then we see that the two voices are Ganthet and Sade, who, as we revealed at the end of Green Lantern 20, did end up surviving. And they are like, yep, nope, he's going to be great. He brought out the best in me, says Ganthet, and he's going to bring out the best in so many other people. And now I can be yours forever. And say it's like, and I am yours as well. So then they go out in the universe and they enjoy happily ever after. The end. I like it. I think it's a nice little, just slow downbeat, like, yep, the team is gone. Here's what everybody's up to. And then it's setting Kyle on, you know, maybe let's heal some of those wounds. I've found my dad. And that is a major character beat for the character of he always wanted that father figure. He lost the one that was in Ganthet, and so he decided to go see his actual dad. And there's plenty of stories that can come out of that. None of them really Space Cop related or even Space Jesus related, so I doubt we're really going to do anything with it, but if we do, I wouldn't be disappointed. So overall, I enjoyed the issue. I'll give it a 7.5. Mainly, the only thing that's keeping it from an 8 is that it does feel really padded out. It, like, everything I said was good, but it felt really spaced out. Like, if this were a bit less decompressed, it could have fit into, like, half an issue, which sounds obvious, but at the same point, it's just not a lot there in substance. So, yeah, 7.5. Still really enjoyed it, though, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the series manages to go from here. The Green Team, number 1, written by Art Baltazar and Franco, art by Guara. I have been waiting to do this for the entirety of this show. This is one of the first comics out of the New 52 that was a planned to be ongoing series that got canceled and never was collected. So it took me some actual effort to track this down. But regardless, it is following a team of teen trillionaires, which we will get associated with very soon. So we open up in New York City following a young boy named Muhammad, and he is currently disobeying his father, and he's like, I just need to talk to this guy named the Commodore, and I will prove my worth to my father, and I will show him that I am worthy of taking over his company and following in his footsteps. And he arrives at this broken down warehouse in Lower Manhattan. His bodyguard says, all right, I'm going to call your dad and make sure everything's good. And Muhammad's like, oh, no, don't call my dad. He's busy in meetings. I'll call him. Don't worry about it. So we see that there was a invite that he got to a thing called Poxpo, which is inside of this building. And as Muhammad walks in, it's very broken down, but there are a bunch of scientists inside with a bunch of crazy-ass inventions. And immediately he's met up with by this girl who's like, yeah, no, this is crazy. I mean, Poxpo's a stupid name along with Green Team, but like the stuff going on here is absolutely insane because it's like it's a tech convention that's run by the Commodore where he just invites people to sell their craziest ideas. And these are things that you may never, ever see again. And she's like, oh, yeah, by the way, sorry. No, sorry, she doesn't even say what her name is, but she's like, oh, sorry, I must have been blabbering on. And Muhammad's like, oh, no, thanks for telling me what's going on. Anyway, how's it going? And she's like, oh, you're a little bit young to be here. What's going on? And it's like, and for some reason, he's just like, he's the one who's got the internal monologue going on that we're reading, and he's completely shell-shocked that he's here at all. He has no idea what's going on. But as he looks across the hall, a hush falls across, and it's Commodore Murphy. He is a kid with like billions of dollars, and he is just looking to sell it on any sort of like science cool startup things he can get. And immediately the girl's like, oh my God, you're one of his groupies, aren't you? Muhammad's like, no, he's really cool. So at that point, she calls over to Commodore, and her name is LL, which is the sister of one of the other characters there. We'll get to it. But they're all just like, oh, yeah, hey, who's your friend over here? And she's like, oh, this is Muhammad. And immediately Commodore's like, oh, yeah, I know who you are. Did your dad send you? And he's like, well, and he's like, okay, you snuck out here on your own. And Muhammad is basically like, yeah, so I'm here for a reason, but even if my dad doesn't know, like, how do you know about me? He's like, oh, I know a lot about everybody. And his full name is Prince Muhammad Katani, and the other people in the Commodore's group are Cecilia Sunbeam, who is an actress, and a cowboy-looking guy named J.P. Houston, who is big in oil bonds and stuff like that. So everyone got their money different ways. So, and the girl, what's her name? Lucia Lynn Houston, who is the little sister of J.P. Houston. So at that point, she starts laying it off just like, oh yeah, no, Commodore, he's big on tech. He's absolutely crazy on it. Anything that's super high tech enough, he'll totally fund. And so they walk around just looking at some of the exhibits here at the expo. One of them is lasers that apparently like you can control via an app on a smartphone. And so he uses the Commodore's phone to say like, yeah, you can use this to like do a medical procedure while you're on the other side of the globe. And he's like, oh yeah, that's super awesome. I'll go ahead and fund that. And he's like, oh, thank you so much. So at that point, we get the explanation that while he is rich, he has billions of dollars. He has a trust fund when he turns 21, where he gets $64 trillion, which that's insane. But regardless, that's why he's just, super rich regardless. So then he goes to the next one, and it is a car that is powered by the internet. And the way they explain it is you just pick a stat, any stat, like YouTube views or likes or subscribers, and the car can just run off that if you keep on getting enough. So immediately Cecilia's like, oh, this would be great for my Instagram page. So he's saying he's going to fund it. JP pulls him apart and he's like, hey, are you just funding stupid things that are going to make you like your superhero stuff? And he's like, it's not superhero stuff, but yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. And JP calls him out on it, like, man, this is dangerous. Don't do this stuff. And as they start bickering, Cecilia pops in and is just like, oh yeah, how about we go get some dinner? So they all start to more or less leave, but Muhammad jumps in and he's like, hey, actually, I'm really hoping, Commodore, that you can look at, like, purchase, like, my dad offered up buying one of your companies, and I really think that you should let him do it. And he's like, no, the reason I didn't let your dad, like, buy my stuff is because he doesn't have any imagination with it. Like, I could have sold all that stuff, but I'm looking for something that's going to do something. Like, we all have money. All of us are rich. So now we got to find something else to do. We have to find a bigger purpose here. And then all of a sudden, JP starts freaking out because it turns out that the entire time, Muhammad was taking pictures with GPS tagging on. And he's like, dude, this was all supposed to be secret. You're never supposed to let that stuff out. And turns out he's been doing it for like half an hour. So they all are like, all right, everybody pack up, clear out. We got to get out of here before the crazies come after us. And then immediately this dude in a crazy ass all white outfit shows up and he's like, Commodore, your riches have gotten you nothing but death. And it turns out this is somebody who's been stalking the Commodore for a while, trying to kill him. And his name is Riot. We see the bodyguard for Muhammad come up and try to take him out, but he doesn't go down easy, so he just stands back up and attacks the bodyguard. Commodore uses his tech that he's been building that basically gives him a superhero suit, like straight up Iron Man levels. And he's like, now I'm going to be able to show you what all this tech is really for. And he doesn't, like, he just immediately, like, loses control and flies away. And so Muhammad uses the laser via smartphone app to fire a laser through Riot. Commodore finally gets control and starts attacking him. And Riot's like, fine, you managed to get one of me down, but what about the rest of me? And then we see just an entire horde of these Riot guys come out and start to attack all of the green team. And Muhammad's like, uh-oh, I think I just killed the richest kid in the world. Womp womp. It's an okay start. It's nothing great so far. I mean, it's not, obviously, I wasn't expecting it to be anything too fantastic, but this is mainly just a point of let's get all the characters introduced and the primary threat. And the biggest hurdle that they're covering is, why should I care about a bunch of rich dicks? And I feel like they did an okay job where they're like, look, it's the Iron Man thing. You have enough money, you use it for a good cause. However, they didn't quite cover the hurdle of making me think he's doing it for a good reason rather than he's just bored. So once they manage to cover that hurdle, I'll like the team a bit more. Otherwise, writing's fine, pacing's fine. Nothing is standout, nothing is great, but also nothing is miserably bad either. I think the biggest issue is that it has to introduce like 6 different characters all at once, and nobody's getting the time they need except maybe Commodore. So I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 6.5. I'm hopeful. I'm looking forward to the next issue, but obviously it isn't going to turn out that amazing. So fingers crossed. Batman Incorporated number 11, written by Chris Burnham, art by Jorge Lucas. This is just a complete stop. Like, this is an aside story where it literally opens up with the cat Alfred sitting at Damien's grave, and then it says, we interrupt your regularly scheduled broadcast, and then it just starts with the Batman of Japan story. So we have 5 motorcyclists all dressed up Power Ranger style that are just terrorizing people in Japan, like literally ripping out tongues and beating each other with the bodies of other people. And finally the police arrive and they're like, oh, stop or we will shoot. And then they say, oh, we're invulnerable. So they just let the cops shoot them and then aim their own guns back at them. And then one of the cops had set off the bat alarm. So then we cut to a shot of Hero, who is the Batman of Japan, having dinner with a girl named Canary, who apparently is like 6 inches tall. So he is shrunken down to her level so that they can have this dinner. And as things are like about to get a little bit steamy, all of a sudden all the walls start flashing Batman's image. And he's like, all right, you're back on the clock, get at it. And it turns out this was all just a virtual reality thing that they were doing to be able to share their moment with each other. But they rush off and get into the transmutation sequence, which transforms them into Batman and Canary. So they go down. We see that the motorcyclists are just terrorizing a group of like teenage girls and are about to kill them. And then Batman jumps in and just like, halt, stop hurting those teenage girls. And one of them's like, oh my God, is that your sidekick? Are you dating a 6 inch like tall girl? Well, no wonder you're okay with these high school girls. And Batman's like, okay, I mean, that's just a low blow. That just stings a little bit. So at that point, Canary uses her canary cry, which is the same as Black Canaries, and it's supposedly supposed to hurt them, but obviously it does nothing to these guys. So then Batman uses a knife hidden in the toe of his shoe to slice the top off of one of their helmets, which they say, oh, it's pointless. There's nothing you could do. And one of them gets Batman's belt and uses it to restrain both Batman and Canary in like foam. And then Canary uses her cry to destroy one of their motorcycles. And they're like, crap, now we actually really need those. This ain't over, Batman. So they all ride away. And Batman and Canary are like, okay, well, that was something. Who knows what that was all about? And they're analyzing like all this tech stuff and like, okay, well, maybe we could use this so we could analyze their voices off of YouTube, get their last position or whatnot. And they basically managed to triangulate the motorcycle's last positions. So then they get a tiny little bit of nanotechnology and they're like, I'll use this to override the tech in their helmets. So they hop in their Batmobile and drive off. We see the motorcyclists arrive at a woman with two tigers at her sides, and she's like, fools, don't ever get messed up like that. One of them destroyed your motorcycles. How dare you? Or, we'll never achieve our master plan or whatever. So Batman and the Canary arrive at the location that the motorcycles say they are. They don't see anything. Canary uses her cry at a very specific pitch, which reveals a cloaking device that shows this giant lair in the middle of the road. The Power Rangers come out because they're literally posing at this point. And Batman's like, hey, did your boss chew you out for wrecking her moped? And they're like, shut up. We're gonna beat you. And then at that point, he throws the nanotechnology onto all of their helmets, save for one of them, which then Canary just catches and throws on it anyway. And then all of their helmets start to melt, which reveals that underneath it all, they're not hot motorcycle babes. They are like horribly deformed with technology growing out of parts of their brains. And they recount, we were going to be the public face of Leviathan, in that we would win a bunch of motorcycle races, and that would show Leviathan is great at sports as well. But in order to become great at sports, they infused us with this technology that grew more than it was supposed to, and so we became grotesque and deformed. And then everyone's just like, okay, well, why didn't you just like ask for help? And they're like, good point. Let's turn against our leader. So they all go in to storm the leader. Turns out the two tigers by her hands are actually robots without tiger heads, and the tiger heads that we saw are the fists of Lady Tiger Fists. This lady's entire power is she has tiger fists. She has two. I really cannot overstate this point that she just has tiger heads where her hands should be. So either way, fight scene breaks out. And looks like one of the fists swallows Canary, but then spits her back out again. And so it seems that Lady Tiger Fist gets the upper hand and kills both Canary and Batman. But then it turns out that this was all just part of that hollow screen illusion that was from the beginning of the thing. And they're like, haha, we put you in this room so you think you would have won, but in reality you were in our trap all along. And yeah, I mean, it's they just have her now. They literally don't even wrap it up. They're just like, yep, we've saved the day. So then we get one page of Canary and Hero being back in the hollow room, the hollow deck, basically. And they're sharing an apple, and they're like, yes, we can escape here and be whoever we want to be. And they're going in for a kiss, and then it says, and now back to your regularly scheduled programming. I mean, it's a one-shot. It's just completely separated. I don't think... Has Batman of Japan even been in this book? I don't think he has. I think he's just been completely forgotten about. So, is it bad? No. Not directly. It's weird. But every time I hear about Batman of Japan, I always hear it's weird. But it's in a fun sort of way. I don't know. It's disappointing for this specific book because obviously we went into this big old thing of like, oh, and now Talia's going to die. But now it's like, okay, I mean, is it really that big of a deal? If we're just going to stop, and I understand that the artist probably needed more time or Morrison needed more time, but like, I don't know, a completely separate one shot rather than just delaying, it doesn't quite work for me. But it is fun on its own. So I'm going to give this one I gotta give it like a 6.5. It's not bad. I really don't want to say it's bad, but it's so off-putting to just have this here. It's perfect Morrison, but I'm not a fan of it. So, yeah, 6.5. Batman the Dark Knight number 20, written by Gregg Hurwitz, art by Szymon Kudranski. So last issue, Mad Hatter kind of killed a lot of people. And all the bodies just floated into the bay, and it's a really dark issue. This issue picks up with Gordon talking to Batman, and basically them being like, look, we both agree this will eventually end, right? Like, we have to agree, like, this is not just how Gotham is forever. And Batman's like, yeah, no, totally. Like, this is way worse than it usually is. So, at that point, Gordon, he goes on TV and he tells everyone, like, look, we assure you we're doing everything we can, but what we have figured out is that this is all linked to Crazy Hats. So if anybody has bought anything Crazy Hats related, toss it. Get rid of it. Help people who have bought it as well. It's all mind control stuff. And we see Mad Hatter's watching this on TV, and he's super pissed off because that wasn't part of the plan. It wasn't supposed to go that way. And so he's like, okay, fair enough. We'll only work with what we have here and now. But I'm going to go get my new Alice. So we see Batman is maneuvering through the underground of Gotham, and he says, oh, there's tons of tunnels here that are just completely out of use. No one has ever come down here, so it's a mishmashing, and many different decades are all down here, so it's hard to track it down. But he eventually comes up through a vent, which is right up on the same hill where he tracked the van to that one time, and he's like, hey, can we focus on this area specifically, Alfred? And Alfred's like, yeah, but everything's thrown up with like a government firewall. And Batman's like, well, get around it, and also send me my jet. So then we see Natalia. I feel like that's her name. I'm so bad at her name, but regardless, Natalia is playing the piano, and then she sees a bright light outside her window. She assumes it's Batman there to pick her up, and as she goes over the window, it explodes and she's blown back. And then we see Bruce is down in the cave, and he's looking over Damian's stuff, and he's like, I can't stop thinking about him, which also leads me to think about how I might lose her. And Alfred's like, yeah, well, she's brought you back into the light, and you can't have both. You can't have darkness and light. They literally destroy each other. And we see Natalia has been kidnapped by Mad Hatter, and he's just like, hey, I mean, your hair's a bit short, but we can grow that out. You're going to be a great Alice. So then we go back to Wayne Manor, and Bruce sees his parents, and they're like, hey, Bruce, we've been here all along, and we just wanted to tell you, you could be so much more. Like, honestly, there's no way you're ever gonna move past us. And they start turning into, like, nightmare creatures that look like his villains all combined together. And then he wakes up, turns out it was a dream. And the bat signal's up in the sky. And Alfred's like, oh, are you going out for the bat signal? And he's like, no. I mean, yes, I'm going to the bat signal. But first, I'm going to stop by Natalia's place, and I'm going to tell her I will stop being Batman one day. This isn't a permanent thing. I will eventually stop being Batman, and we can have a life together. And Alfred's like, you would do that for her. And he's like, no, I'm doing it for me. So we see Mad Hatter basically dragging Natalia through Wonderland, saying, oh, and when we get here, it's going to be this. And when we go here, it's going to be that. Right? Doesn't that sound great? And she scratches him across the face and says, no, I'm never going to be your Alice. Get that through your skull. And he says, fair enough. That means you're useless to me. And he gets Tweedledee and Tweedledum start drowning her. And he says, wait, hold on. She actually has one more use. Who is Batman? We know you know. And Batman, at that point, has just arrived in Natalia's apartment, which had the wall blown out. And they're like, oh, hey, Commissioner Gordon didn't even call you yet. What are you doing here? And he just flies off. And they're like, all right, that's weird. And he tells Alfred, like, she's in trouble. I put a GPS tracker on her. Turn it on, for God's sakes. So then we see Natalia's getting the crap beaten out of her. But she was born tough. She was in Ukraine. Like, she's like, no, I don't know what you're asking about. I don't know no Batman. But even then, you're going to have to do more than that. And he's just like, okay, well, how about a change of scenery? And they drag her onto a helicopter and say, all right, last chance. Tell me who Batman is. And she, blood all down her face, just says, no, never. And in her monologue, she's saying, please hurry, Bruce, save me, Batman. And we see that she is thrown out of the helicopter as Bruce finally gets a lock on her GPS. And all of a sudden, we see through a window, the bat signal goes from on to off. And it is revealed that Natalia was not saved in time, and she fell right onto the bat signal and died. The end. Boy, I love a nice cheery book like that. I mean, didn't I say this? Didn't I say this like 3 issues ago? Like, well, she's dead. The moment she found out about the secret identity, like, it had to happen. I guess I didn't expect it to happen this soon, though. I kind of expected it to be like the last issue where, like, Mad Hatter was just kind of grasping at straws to make it work, and he ended up killing her almost accidentally. But I think this works as well. It really does. I think this whole story has done a lot to really up the profile of Mad Hatter. Makes him much more menacing of a villain. I do think that having her die just as soon as Bruce is like, no, I will stop being Batman if it means I can be happy with her. Like, okay, that seems a bit on the nose. This whole thing seems a bit like melodrama, but it's well told and very well drawn. I very much like Kudranski's art. So overall, I'll give this one like a flat 7. I think the only problem I really had with it is I don't feel like we were close enough with Natalia for it to, and that might not be her name. That's especially so the fact I don't even know if that's her name, and it's driving me insane. It is Natalia. Cool. But the fact I was second guessing it, yeah, I didn't feel like we were close enough where this death is really going to land that hard. So, yeah, 7. Talon number 8, written by James Tynion IV, art by Miguel Sepulveda. So last issue, Calvin had his neck snapped by Bane. And he is dead. Like, actually, truly dead. So this issue picks up with Casey and Sarah. They are currently trying to make their way over to a bus to get out of Gotham. And Casey's just like, okay, things are awful, but we'll get out of the town and everything will work out fine. And before they can make it to the bus, Sarah gets grabbed by the butcher. I forget what his actual name is, but the big Talon. And Casey immediately flips around, has a gun, and he's just like, I can go ahead and crush her skull, like, before you can take me down. So you're going to listen to what I have to say. And she's like, all right, what do you want? He's like, cool. Take me to the Calvin Rose. That's really my only goal here. Just take me to Calvin. So they arrive back at Sebastian's bunker, and they get inside, and they just see the Calvin's dead. And Butcher's like, okay, this wasn't part of my plan. I'm not sure what to really do here. So you guys are going to be coming with me. And we go to the Gotham Public Library, where apparently in the back sections, whatever you say, a secret passphrase, and then the walls open up, and it's a secret meeting place for the Court of Owls. And some guys make their way in there, and they basically say, like, okay, here's the thing. This guy, he has managed to destroy our computer systems as of last issue, and the entire base is blown up. We're looking into it to see if there's anything else we could do. Also, we're trying to track down Sebastian Clark because he's being a real pain in the ass right now. So that's everything going on right now. And the Grandmaster's just like, okay, but like really all I need is my mask. Get me back my mask. So then he heads into the back room, and we see that Casey is all strung up, and the Grandmaster comes in and is basically interrogating her. Is like, okay, tell me literally anything. Tell me how we can get the data back from the island, Securitas Island. Tell me who Sebastian Clark is working with, who killed Calvin. And she's just like, where's my daughter? I'm not saying anything until I know where my daughter is. And Grandmaster's not giving anything up. So he goes into the quote-unquote morgue. Calvin's in there, and he's just like, Calvin, you cost me $15 billion over the past few days. I'm going to get my money back out of you. And he tells the scientist to begin the process. So then we get a nightmare sequence of like all these moments from Calvin's past and blah, 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 whatnot. And basically what it all ends up being is that, as is the other Talons, he is brought back to life. He's been revived. And the Grandmaster's standing there being like, hi, you're back in the Court of Owls again. You will be our Talon. Isn't that fun? And he's just like, I'm not going to help you. Why would you think I'm going to help you? And he pulls up videos of Casey being beaten and Sarah being brainwashed into becoming basically a young Court of Owls member. And he's just like, because we're going to keep doing this if you don't. And Calvin's like, no, okay, fine, I'll join you. Jesus, it's you started at 11, man. So he gets up and off the table, and he's like, all right, fine. He kneels before the Grandmaster, and all the other Court of Owls are watching through the window. They're like, yeah, we did it. We got him. Good job. So at that point, the Grandmaster's like, okay, who was Sebastian Clark working with? Who's the guy who killed you? And Calvin tells him it was Bane. And then immediately Grandmaster's like, ah, crap. Ah, son of a bitch. All right, yeah, he's on Santa Prisca, everybody. Cut to Santa Prisca, where Bane is just walking and talking with Sebastian. He's just like, yeah, here's the thing. I don't know why you chose such weak people to begin with. If you wanted to take back over Gotham, you should have come to me first. That's like my whole thing. So he's got his army of people, and he's just like, we're going to Gotham. We're going to take out both Batman and the court. Gonna be a hoot. Poor choice of words. But then we see back with the Grandmaster. Talon's like, okay, let me guess. You want me to kill Bane? And he's just like, I'm sorry, you honestly think we're going to send you hundreds of miles away after you just got brought back to life? No, you stupid child. No, instead, there's been another rogue Talon that's been causing us problems. We want you to use the special serum that will absolutely kill any revived Talons, and we've developed it all super secret or whatnot. Her name is Mary Turner, aka Strix. She's in the book Birds of Prey, as soon you will be as well. So go ahead, suit up, and go get her. And so he suits up, and he's like, oh boy, I'm telling myself I'm doing this for the sake of Casey and Sarah, but like I don't like any second of it. And then we cut to a rooftop where Batgirl and Strix are, and it's to be continued in Birds of Prey 21. I mean, I already read Birds of Prey 20. I know that we were eventually going to get there anyway, so it's not that much of a shock, but still interesting. Do I like that he was brought back? Yes. I think that it adds a nice little character wrinkle. Do I like the fact that he's working with the Court of Owls? Also, yes. I think that it's at this point, his character has zero direction because he wants revenge on just everybody, and it's hard to focus that. So from a character perspective, to say you are no longer able to get revenge on Court of Owls, but you can get revenge on the guy who lied to you all this time, I think that that's a good direction. Mind you, we're not doing that. We're doing this Birds of Prey tie-in first, which is a bit weaker. But I do think, walk before you can run. Give it some time. Let's test out a Talon versus a Talon. I'm interested. I've always enjoyed this book. I trust James Tynion's writing. I think this is a good way for this to go. But I also know that this book gets canceled sooner rather than later. And I just really hope that they can get it all together. I really want them to see through to a conclusive story rather than something that's cut short. So overall, I'll give this one I'll give it a 7, just a flat 7. It's not fantastic. I think that it's not as bombastic as they want it to be of him coming back to life, but it's really hard to follow up that last issue as well. So 7 sounds fair. Superman number 20, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Aaron Kuder. So last issue, there was a weird thing where everyone was acting weird at a party. Superman then got attacked by Orion, and then this issue is so quick to go through. But first we get a weird little parallel timeline, something like that, where Ma and Pa Kent are still alive. They're visiting Clark in Metropolis, and he's got like the penthouse suite and all that. And he's just like, oh yeah, no, ever since the wedding, everything's been fine. And his parents are proud of him, and they're all, happy that he's there. But they'd like him to come back to Smallville if he ever gets the urge to. And we see that in this universe. Oh, by the way, they also explicitly mentioned that Superman was killed by Doomsday. Like, at least in this parallel timeline thing, that definitely happened. So we see that the woman that he supposedly married was Lana Lang. So she's here. They got a little puppy. And as they're kissing on the balcony, all of a sudden, Orion's fist just shatters through the entire memory. And it turns out that this was some weird, hallucination or something like that. And he's been seeing things as of last issue and even the issue before. So this is just continuing on that. So Orion's beating the crap out of him. He recaps how he got here. And he's like, okay, now that I am back in the real world, let's take care of this. And he just punches Orion through an entire battleship. And Orion's like, ow, that actually hurt. You hurt me. And Superman just keeps on laying on the punches. And he's like, all right, tell me what your name is, why you're attacking me, or else you're going to be doing the same thing, but later through a straw. And Orion's like, I don't think you know who I am. Let me clear that up for you. You are the problem here. The prophecy said, I got to kill you. And he's like, what do you mean prophecy? And immediately Orion lands some sucker punches on him. And then proceeds to pick up a battleship from the harbor and try to drop it down on Superman. He uses heat vision, though, to superheat the metal and causes it to collapse down on Orion, which gives him just a second to breathe. At that point, Wonder Woman shows up and is like, hey, Superman, how's it going? You won the battle? And he's like, nah, I don't think so. I'm really struggling here. And she's like, no problem. We'll just fight him together. And so Orion breaks out of the ship, locks eyes with Diana, and he's like, oh, hey, it's you. And Wonder Woman's like, oh, why are you here? Because if you didn't know, in Wonder Woman, they were teaming up. And also Orion smacked her on the ass and kissed her. So there's some history there. But regardless, that causes things to calm down long enough where Orion's like, okay, maybe we can talk this out. Here's the thing. We have reason to believe that Hector Hammond, who, yes, is a part of this plot, has infected your mind and is just kind of living in there. And Superman's like, that explains why I'm seeing things. And so Wonder Woman uses her lasso to basically force Hector out of Clark's mind, which I don't think makes any sense, but it works. And Hector starts freaking out and he's just like, how did you manage to find me? I was in the deepest parts of his subconscious. And so Orion uses his mother box to not only expel Hammond from Superman's mind, but set up psychic walls so that he will never be able to get back in again. And we see Hector is woken back up in his own body back in Star Labs. So Wonder Woman and Orion share an awkward moment where Wonder Woman's like, well, bye, get out of here. And he's like, you don't want to, back to doing what we were doing before. And she's like, no, bye. And he apologizes for Superman for trying to kill him. And Superman's like, yeah, okay, get out now, please. So at that point, Superman and Wonder Woman just hug. And they're like, maybe we could just, go back home, chill for the rest of the night. And he's like, yeah, no, totally. Although I do have this weird feeling like there's something, I don't know, something in the back of my mind. And then we see deep in Superman's subconscious is the Lana that he married in that weird subconscious dream thing, and she's stumbling around a destroyed metropolis saying, Superman, where are you? It's me, your wife. And we see that she is like just a husk of a human being walking around. And that's it. That's the issue. I mean, it's okay. It's not the worst thing. It's read very quickly because nothing was really happening. It was a scene that I had no context for, which I did read. Like, I didn't just glance over it. I read it. And then as soon as I realized, oh, it's a dream, I just put it out of my mind. Then we have an extended fight scene. And then Orion just fixes it with a mother box and Wonder Woman's lasso. And that's it. That's the issue. I'm sure we're not done with Hector. I mean, the cover for the next issue basically proves that. But, like, I feel like we're done. I feel like this is wrapped up. Sure, we've got that weird Lana in the back, but Hector is no longer a factor in that. That's just weird Lanas inside of Superman's subconscious now. So I don't know where this is going. I barely even know where it came from. So, I mean, to rate it, I guess I'll just give it like... I'll give it like a 6... I almost want to say 0.5, but I'm just going to say 6. It's not great. Every issue feels so just independent that it's not making me care about going into the next issue. So, yeah, 6. Aquaman number 20, written by John Ostrander, art by Manuel Garcia. So, judging by the fact that this issue is not included in my Aquaman trade, and is instead included in my Aquaman and the Others trade, this is a backdoor pilot for Aquaman and the Others. So, we open up in Arizona, a Native American reservation, and we see a whole bunch of cows have been completely mauled and destroyed. A man is looking over them. He hears something behind him. And there's this giant dude with like wolf-like figures is the best way I can describe him. And like a pelt over his head. So then we go to the operative's plane. And he's talking with a woman on like a FaceTime call. And the woman's like, give me back my son. And he's like, no, he deserves a better mom. And I'm going to give him a better life. And all of a sudden, the son walks in. And, of course, it's his grandson. And the woman on the phone was either his daughter or daughter-in-law. And he's just like, oh, hey, Aaron, shouldn't you be flying the plane? And Aaron's like, it literally does that itself. I have nothing to do here. And then, all of a sudden, teleporting in is Aquaman, Prisoner of War, and Guara. And he's just like, oh, hey, Guara, you brought your jaguars. That's great. Aaron, could you bring them to the kitchen and make sure they don't pee on anything? And she tells the jaguars, don't eat Aaron, only eat the food. And then Aquaman's like, okay, guys, here's the thing. In my book, I have to deal with Atlantean tech because of everything that happened in my book. But there is a piece of it that we track down to the Arizona deserts, and clearly I can't go after that. So I was hoping you guys could. And they're like, okay, we won't do it for Atlantis or even for a king, but we'll do it for our friend Arthur. So then we go back to the reservation and we meet up with a young girl named Sky, who's able to talk to spirits, or at least specifically the spirit of her mother. And her brother comes out being like, Mom died. You should ask her who killed her because we solved that murder. Also, the brother is like, I think a cop. Hard to say. And he goes inside, he talks to his grandmother. She's like, oh, you shouldn't fill her head with that spirit mumbo jumbo. And she's like, that's an important part of our culture. I'll have you know. You shouldn't be so eager to throw it all away. And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I'm going to go talk to Uncle Carl, and then I got to get to work. So he hugs Sky, and Sky's like, "Hey, Grandma, I'm gonna go out. I won't be back till late." And she's like, "Okay, well, where are you going?" And she's like, "I don't know. I'm just gonna kind of wing it. I know where I'll be when I end up there." So we see that the brother, whose name is Victorio, I believe. Yeah, Victorio. He's meeting up with Uncle Carl, and Carl's basically like, "Hey, man, leave the reservation. Come work for me. There's power here. Like, come work down in this construction mine business." And he's like, "Nah, I got to stay with my family. But good talking to you, Uncle Carl." So then we see Uncle Carl's eyes are red, so obviously he's evil. Cut to I always forget his name. Operative. That's the one. His plane gets struck by lightning and starts falling out of the sky. So they very quickly crash land. And when they open up the back of the plane to get out, Sky's just there waiting. And she's like, hey everybody. Oh, I see the helmet that Vostok had. And there's the thing that girl had. And she just goes to grab it. And Guara's like, "No, that's not you. Who is this chick? Why is she just taking our relics and stuff?" And she's like, "Okay, right, sorry, I'm a little bit scatterbrained. I spoke to the spirit of," what was her name? Kahina, the one who had this relic originally. And I know that you kind of had like a more than friends thing for her, Guara, but like she wants me to have this. And also she says she loves you back. And Guara's like, "Okay, I guess you can have it." So at that point, Operative's like, "All right, well, how did you even know we were going to be here?" And he's like, "Oh, I spoke to the lightning beings and they struck down your plane." And he's like, "Right, lightning beings. So we're just letting in crazy people now? Okay." And at that point, she says, "Look, I know you're looking for Atlantean thing. It's like a power glove, and the skinwalkers have it." And we see the monster from the beginning. And this guy is using it to break down the walls of a tomb that the gods put all the other skinwalkers in. And if he frees them, he will have an army of them to attack the ghost lands, which I guess is like the spirit realm or something. And at that point, we see him doing that. He's already in the middle of it. And so the others teleport in, and they all start using their powers. Operative gets smacked around a little bit. Then Prisoner of War has to be convinced to use the spirits of his fallen soldiers to fight, because he's very hesitant to send them back into battle again, but Sky convinces him to do it. And then we see the Skinwalker loses the pelt off of his face. It is, of course, Uncle Carl. And Sky's like, "You killed my mother, didn't you?" And he's like, "Yeah, I did. And I'm going to kill you too." And then she uses some sort of spirit blast power. It's very poorly explained. And everyone's like, "Hey, let's collapse the cave on him and we'll just entomb him along with the rest of them." And so they do that and teleport out. And then they all have made their way back to the plane. And they're like, "Hey, Sky, we can't let you on the plane because you're not like an official member, but we'll be in touch. You're cool." And she's like, "I'm happy to be here. You know where I am." And as the plane flies off, she speaks to her spirit of her dead mom again. It's just like, "Yeah, I think they are troubled, but they're good people, Ma. Also, I love you too." And that's the issue. That's the backdoor pilot, which it was fine. It was a perfectly good backdoor pilot. It gave a short and brief but believable reason as to why Aquaman would bother talking to them at this point, which is Atlantean tech. It's here. Just go get it for me. And they did that while introducing a new character and also making it a reasonable enough reason as to why Aquaman could not go along on the mission. All that combined, I liked it. The only thing I would give some criticism to is they really gave 3 or 4 pages to backstory on like cousin or Uncle Carl and Victorio, where I don't feel like they're going to be recurring characters. I feel like Sky's going to be the only one we care about, and I much rather would have learned more about her. So yeah. Beyond that, I'll give this one I'll just give it a flat 7. It's fine. It's good. It ain't great. Same as it ever was. And art-wise, take it or leave it. It's kind of a house style with a bit more heavier runnings. So whether you like that or not, still a 7. The Flash number 20, written by Francis Manapul and Brian Buccellato, art by Francis Manapul. So last issue we had one of the Speed Force using people, Albert, was killed by seemingly the Reverse Flash. And this issue picks up with Marissa, one of the other Speed Force using people, writing a note to her husband Gomez saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm a villain. Please come visit me in jail. I miss you." And then all of a sudden Reverse Flash shows up and starts undoing the message, like going backwards in time. And he says, I'm also looking to be able to undo past mistakes and find time. And I'm going to steal it from you. And she ends up dead. So that's a thing. We then cut to Barry and Patty are moving in together. And Patty's like, "Oh yeah, I'm so excited about this. By the way, I know you've never met my parents before, but I would like your help in throwing this major party for their anniversary as they come to visit town. Would you be cool with that?" And she's like, "Yeah, no, totally. I'd love to meet your parents." She's like, oh, it's just because you never really talk about your parents. I'm just kind of, like, what's going on with that?" And he's like, "Okay, well, I guess it's time for the talk." And he goes over the whole thing of like, my mom was killed. My dad was arrested for it. I keep on investigating it, but like I'm not getting anywhere. And my dad says stop investigating it. So you know what? I'm choosing to move forward in my life. Here's the box of all the evidence I ever found to clear my dad. Just take it and hide it somewhere. Don't tell me where. I'm all in with you. We can just move forward. So they share a kiss. And then Barry's just like, "Yeah, no, it's great being the Flash right now. There's really not that many big things going on. Too bad Albert died yesterday trying to set up cable from outside his building," which we know is not true. But Barry's gotten reinstated at his job, kind of. He is working in the police station, but now he's down in the basement where it's just a bunch of unsolved case files that he is now in charge of organizing, which is apparently a 6-month job, but he does it in like a minute. So at that point, Iris steps in and he's just like, "Oh yeah, hey, I just came here to give you a little present because I heard you got your job back and neither of us have Speed Force powers, so that's cool." And then this guy named Forrest steps in and he's like, "Hey, that guy Albert who died, since it was an accidental death, we got this big weird tech ball thing. I just want to store it down here." And Barry picks it up and immediately it starts glowing. And he's like, "I have no idea what's going on here." So Patty steps in and is just like, "Hey, I figured I should tell you Marissa died and we're not sure how. Like, there's not a lot of evidence." And Barry's like, "Oh my God, do you think it was like her ex-husband?" And he's like, "I don't know, maybe. This is worth checking into." So Forrest at this point is now checking out the weird little glow ball thing because he wasn't sure what it was before. So now he's really interested. And then Barry's like, "Okay, I'm just going to step out real quick." So he goes Flash. He is immediately able to just feel where Gomez is, and he's currently trying to catch a train out of town. And Flash is like, "Hey, Gomez, we need to talk." And Gomez just throws him onto the tracks. Barry then zooms out, chases after Gomez, and Gomez is like, "No, I didn't kill Albert. I definitely didn't kill Marissa. And whoever it was tried to kill me, but I managed to escape. And I'm getting the hell out of here before they find me again." And he breaks the rails for the train, so Flash has to use his speed to make a wind tunnel to guide the train back onto the other set of rails. And he poses for some pictures, and he's like, "Yeah, all in a day's work, but like I really do need to figure out who this murderer is that's attacking Speed Force connected people." So we see he's analyzing the body of Marissa in the morgue, and she's been like cut to death and burned and electrocuted, and like her blood is like weird. There's a lot going on, and he's just like, "Okay, well, maybe there's like something else that I can find. Maybe something to do with Albert." And he's like, "Oh wait, the glowy blue ball thing. I can't believe I forgot about that." So he goes back into his office, grabs the ball thing, and it turns out this is a ball that Albert's tech powers made that is just a ball full of cameras. And it's voice activated, so he says computer play, and we see the moment where Albert was trying to install it, this blur comes in and kicks Albert off the roof, and Barry's like, "Okay, hold on, freeze frame that." And it's still a blur, but he can make out his logo, but backwards. And he's like, "Wait a minute, the backwards Flash logo. I know where I've seen that before. It's Kid Flash from the Teen Titans. Time to go pay him a visit." I'm not kidding. That's the jump he makes too, is that it's Kid Flash from the Teen Titans. So that's what we're getting next issue. As for this, it's a good setup. I think that I'm liking the Barry and Patty stuff, but it does feel like the D plot, even if there isn't a C or a B plot, it always feels so far on the back burner that it's practically not even moving at all. If that makes any sense, it's there. I see it there, but it's so much not a thing. But I want it to be a thing. I would like them to give that a bit more of a, just make it a little bit more melodrama. Just like, no, have their relationship go through things. I know that she just found out he was Flash, but like, they're just like, oh, and now we're moving in together and everything's great. No, give it some drama. I want to see it. As for the Reverse Flash stuff going on, it's too early to tell. I like the design of the Reverse Flash. There's one point in here where I feel like it's trying to explain how his powers work. Like at the beginning where it's saying, oh, I take the time, or like I'm taking time from you. But I don't know if that means he's just able to control time, or he's like aging them, or he's undoing it. Like, I'm waiting for a bit more explanation before I really pass judgment on the villain. So overall, it's a fine issue. I think that the cliffhanger's stupid as hell, but hey, we gotta tie into Teen Titans because like every book needs to tie into Teen Titans somehow. So sure, why not? I'll give this one I don't know. I'll say 7.5. I did like it. I like the tone of it, and I like where it's going. So 7.5 feels fair. The Fury of Firestorm, number 20, written and art by Dan Jurgens. So last issue, Firestorm got knocked on his ass because of Plastique and the whole gang of rogues. And we see this issue open up with Eiling and a whole bunch of computer screens. All the soldiers are around just like, all right, this footage is 3 minutes old. Why aren't we there yet? Where's my man on the ground? And this one soldier comes up saying, sir, you have a visitor? And Eiling's like, not now, clearly. He's like, I don't think he's going to wait. So then back at the scene, Tanya and Jason's dad have dragged Firestorm into a back alley, and Jason's unable to actually speak to them, but he's telling them like, run, you idiots, you are not safe here. And of course at that point Hyena jumps out saying like, good, my prey rarely corners itself. So he goes after Jason and Tanya when a mysterious shadowy figure comes out and grabs Hyena by the arm and throws him into a street lamp, which seemingly shatters his spine. And at that point Ronnie gets up and he's like, okay, I'm doing all right. Who's our new friend? And it turns out that this is Major Force, who I believe was last seen in the pages of like Voodoo, if I'm remembering correctly. But he basically gives the breakdown of like, yeah, hey, we were keeping an eye on you. I represent all of the military branches. I come from Eiling. And Firestorm's like, okay, well, we kind of had the not really trustworthy thing going on there. But like, yeah, if you're willing to help, all the better. So at that point, Killer Frost comes and attacks. And Firestorm's like, oh, don't mess with her. She's no joke. And Major Force is like, are you kidding me? And he just starts punching through the ice. So the soldier's still telling Eiling he needs to pay attention to the visitor that came in, and Eiling's like, nobody even knows this is a secure facility. Who in the hell could be here? And all of a sudden, the vault door just flies off, and a fist is coming in, like saying, oh no, I know you're here. So then back at the fight, Major Force is fighting Multiplex, Killer Frost, and I forget his name, Black Bison, I think. And he tells him, hey, look, you said there was a hostage over there. Go deal with the hostage. I can handle these numbskulls. So Firestorm goes over to Plastique, but is interrupted by a tidal wave caused by Typhoon. It's too many water things. And he's dragged down to like the bottom of the sea floor where Typhoon starts beating the crap out of him. And Ronnie's like, okay, like, I'm pissed off enough already. I'm just going to boil this ass. So he immediately throws up his fire powers, causes Typhoon to go flying, pops out of the water, and he's like, hey, Plastique, let's go. You're going to let her go right now. So then we see who wanted Eiling. Turns out it's Superman along with Professor Stein, who is actually alive at this point. Anyway, over at the fight, Firestorm's just like, okay, how am I going to get my mom out? And Jason's like, oh, well, maybe pretend like you're flying away and then circle back around and grab her. And Ronnie's like, I don't think it's going to be necessary, as Jason's dad comes up and just whacks Plastique in the head with a piece of wood, and it just knocks her out, and that's enough to save Ronnie's mom. And at that point, they have a brief little conversation, and Ronnie's mom just like, oh, I'm not sure if I'll ever get used to this craziness, but I know you have to do what you have to do. And they hug each other, and Ronnie goes back to help Major Force in the fight. So at that point, Major Force is taken out because Big Bison used his mystical abilities to put him in a trance, and then Killer Frost froze him. And they're all discussing, like, okay, so, like, are we still here to kill Firestorm? Like, what's going on here? And Multiplex is like, no, we're here to capture him. Just capture. But then Firestorm comes in, frees Major Force. Big Bison tries the same move again, and Bison just punches him out. Firestorm goes in for Killer Frost and traps her in the concrete by opening a hole and then closing it again. And so Multiplex is the only one left. He's also the only one who knows the secret identity, and he's even like, oh, you better not do anything, because if I get out of this, like, I'm gonna blab, I'm gonna tell all about you. And so Ronnie's like, maybe we should kill him. Maybe like that sounds like a decent idea at this point. And at that point, Multiplex is like, okay, well, here's the thing. The real me is several blocks away. These are all just like clones, so you don't have a chance anyway. Go back to your family, and they'll be safe for now. Firestorm's like, I will get you, Multiplex, as he disappears. So at that point, Major Force is like, hey, man, we're totally cool. Like, I've called for an apprehension team. We're going to pick up all the guys. And, hey, I know that the government's been on your tail. Don't worry about it. We've come to an agreement. They're not coming after you anymore. By the way, I am a big fan of yours. Could I get a picture with you? And Ronnie's like, oh, yeah, that seems all really convenient. Sure, let's get a picture. And Jason's like, it seemed a little, I wouldn't take that picture, Ronnie. And he's like, it's no big deal. So Major Force takes a picture. It turns out it's basically a neuralizer, and it knocks out Ronnie. And so Jason also goes unconscious. And when they both come to, they are back in Eiling's compound with Major Force, Superman, and Professor Stein there. And Superman's like, Eiling, you can't just lock up superheroes. And it's like, he's still an American citizen. Eiling's like, I can do it. I'll lock you up too, you freak. And Stein says, look, he's too complicated. Like, he's for a bigger purpose that even you don't understand. He's not to be used for the military. And that's why I contacted the Justice League. And at that point, Jason's like, oh my God, Stein's alive? What? Turns out he faked his death, and he was working in solitude, but he had to come out in order to save Firestorm's life. So Major Force gets in Superman's face. Superman literally just flicks him, and he goes flying through concrete walls. And Stein's like, all right, well, I feel like that makes that point. Hey, whoever is in there, wink, because he definitely knows it's Jason in there. And it's like, you'll get your answers. Just go with Superman right now. And Superman's like, yeah, no, it's nice to meet you, Firestorm. Here's the thing. I have some friends I'd like you to meet. And Firestorm's like, oh, what sort of friends? And he's like, Batman, Flash, Wonder Woman. And he's like, oh my God, are you asking me to be in the Justice League? He's like, oh, I'm asking you to, like, come up and just talk to them right now. There's a lot of big things going on, and we think you could be an asset to us. And he's like, absolutely. By the way, do we have, like, secret handshakes and, like, membership cards? And Superman's like, okay, quick, how old are you, Firestorm? For real? And then it's, just the beginning. So I liked it. I think it was a nice little wrap up. It all really came down to the page where both Ronnie's mom and Jason's dad just took the time to say, look, we get it. You're a superhero. This is going to be dangerous, but we still approve of it. Like, that felt like the only thing in this issue that made it feel like a final issue. Like, obviously, the mom's always been there, the dad's always been there, but they never really interacted with the Firestorm stuff. Now that they've both been put in harm's way, it would have been easy for them to say, like, no, how dare you be Firestorm? It's too dangerous, Ronnie. But, like, they took the time. They said, yeah, no, like, I'm proud of you. You do what you need to do. So I like that as an ending. As for just leading it directly into Justice League, fine. Like, obviously he is in Justice League, so I'm not hard pressed to, like, yeah, sure, just make that transition here. may as well be. But it does kind of take away the punch of the final issue when it's, oh, but like, the adventure continues just over there. Probably for like $1 more per issue. So overall, also, I forgot to mention, there's this bit where Ronnie and Jason come to terms of like, maybe we are a pretty good team and we can work together. Again, that made it feel like final issue sort of territory. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7.5. And it's also, part of that's because I like Major Force just as a character. He's just fun. He's a fun character to have around. He's over the top and I love him for it. So 7.5. Firestorm was all throughout, but it was never that bad. Justice League number 20, written by Geoff Johns, art by Gene Ha, Andre Guinaldo, and Joe Prado, and it also lists Xander Cannon on the layout. So, last issue, our 3 newbies of the Atom, Element Woman, and Firestorm were all set to meet up with Justice League up in the Watchtower, and then Despero attacks. And this picks up with Element Woman, who's swinging by Big Belly Burger to pick up milkshakes for everybody because she's just that type of person. She's kooky and zany like that. And the narration is from the Atom saying like, oh yeah, her name used to be Emily Sung. She got into an accident and now she's just kind of like this, but she may have been like this before as well. But either way, she teleports up to the Watchtower as Firestorm and Atom are under attack from Despero, and they're like, yep, we're all kind of screwed. We're not sure if we can deal with this. And Atom specifically says, everyone here has their secrets. Like, Firestorm is actually 2 people instead of 1, and Atom has her own secrets as well. But Despero's a mind reader, so that, of course, raises some issues. So Despero's looking for Superman. They all run off. They hide. Firestorm makes a titanium door to stop him temporarily, and they're like, okay, I vote we bail. Let's get out of here. And Atom puts forward like, no, we have to stand our ground. We're Justice Leaguers now. This is what we do. And Firestorm's like, look, the last time Despero came by, Martian Manhunter was on the team, and they still barely managed to win. We are screwed. But, eventually he's like, all right, fine, whatever, let's go. Justice League. So Despero busts in. He throws the door at Firestorm, who turns it into snow. And Element Woman's like, yay, I love Christmas. So Despero looks into Firestorm's mind, sees that he's 2 people, and uses his psychic abilities to just rip them apart and send them unconsciously. And at that point, Atom's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe we can't do that. That's a bit of an issue. So then we briefly cut back down to Earth, where Batman was confronting Superman and Wonder Woman about them dating. And he tells them, like, yeah, there was a kryptonite ring and all that. It was stolen. It's a whole big thing. And Wonder Woman's like, what do you mean? Yeah, that dude, what are you doing? But then Cyborg stepped up and says, hey, guys, the defenses are down on the Watchtower. Something's going on, and I can't teleport us up there because it's currently crashing down into Earth. So we go back up into the Watchtower, and Despero's trying to look into the Atom's mind, and maybe it's because she's so small that it's harder for him to get a lock on, but he does sense that she has some secret. And then at that point, Martian Manhunter just busts in, and he's like, Despero, you should have stayed in prison. It was safer there. For you. And him and Despero just start brawling with each other. Despero being like, you betrayed me. You betrayed your own brother. And Martian Manhunter's like, I'm not your brother. He's like, yeah, well, I mean, we're both aliens. That's more what I meant of, that's how we're brethren. We're aliens to this world. And Cyborg's basically like, hey, Superman, the Watchtower's about to crash down on the East Coast. You think maybe you could, I don't know, catch that? And he says, yeah, of course. So he flies off. We then see the psychic battle going on between Manhunter and Despero. Despero makes Manhunter think he's back on Mars, and he's like, you've wasted your power trying to save the weak. It's a thankless existence. And he rips out Martian Manhunter's skull and crushes it in his hand. It's like, I have done it. I have won. Goodbye, Jean. And Jean's like, Despero, you idiot. I was playing by the Justice League's rules the last time we fought, but now I don't have to hold back. I'm a mind whammy the crap out of you. And so he does, and he breaks Despero's mind and knocks him out. Superman catches the Watchtower, and he's not able to put it back into space, so he lays it down on the ground outside of Happy Harbor. And Manhunter's like, he turns over to Adam, and he's like, hey, yeah, he's gonna be back up in like a few weeks' time after his mind fully reboots. Don't tell anybody I was here. And the Manhunter just disappears. So everyone gets back on their feet. Superman's like, Despero, what the heck? Hey, he's wearing my kryptonite ring. What the heck's going on here? And Adam's like, I guess I beat him. That's what happened. And so the whole team gathers around the Watchtower now down on Earth. They're like, all right, he got the kryptonite ring from me, says Batman. Like, I'm the one to blame for this. And it's like, no. The guy who broke into your cave was like human-sized. Someone broke in and gave it to Despero. Also, Adam, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And they look down at the ring on a microscopic level, and there's a tiny little sliver of kryptonite, like just a few atoms thick, that has been carved out of the ring. So there's a sliver unaccounted for. So then Batman takes Superman into his super secret How to Beat the Justice League cave. And he's like, look, Clark, the reason I have a problem with you dating Wonder Woman is I want you to look inside of Wonder Woman's little weakness box here. And he opens it up and there's nothing inside. And he's like, she doesn't have kryptonite. There's nothing I can do to beat her except for you. And that's why I need you to be able to be impartial here. That if she goes bad, you're willing to take her out. And same thing with me. I hope that you're willing to take me out if I'm ever bad. And Superman's like, how do you live with being this paranoid, man? Like, we could never take out our friends. And Batman's like, right, which is why I also made this. And he pulls out a bat box, and inside we don't get to see what there is, but Superman is clearly like, dude, are you serious right now? And he's like, yeah, and you're gonna use it if you really are my friend, if I ever cross that line. So we go back to the Atom, who's talking to somebody. She's saying, I can't do it anymore. Please, you gotta let me quit. And the voice is saying, like, all right, why don't you come in and talk face to face? So she goes through the internet, which I still don't think is possible, but regardless, it's a power, I guess, and comes back out on the other side with Amanda Waller and Steve Trevor. And it turns out that she's a mole placed there as part of the JLA to counter the Justice League if need be. And she says, like, look, yeah, someone hacked into their stuff. Someone took some kryptonite from their cave. Like, I can't, they're good people and I feel bad lying to them. He's like, no, you're a good person because you're helping us, counteract them. We are a deterrent. And you need to tell us everything you know about Firestorm because he's the one that we're unsure of right now. And so apparently that was Adam's secret, is that she's secretly a mole. I liked it. I think it's a nice little two-parter. You know, you got Despero in there playing a bigger role. I love the little psychic battle going on between Manhunter and Despero. It looked really cool, being all set on Mars. Beyond that, the only issue I have is sometimes the art, like the first couple pages at least, very much not my preferred style. But it worked because it was Element Woman's pages, so it was kind of, it came off as weird, but I get it. I get why it was weird. Other than that, the rest of the book is fine. It's just a nice little 2-issue thing of like, oh, here's what the newbies have to deal with one day. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7.5. I liked it. I enjoyed it. Can't say much more than that. The Savage Hawkman, number 20, written by Tom DeFalco, art by Joe Bennett. This is the final issue of the book, and yep, they wrap it up. So, last issue we had Hawkman was being attacked by a hulked out version of Dr. Ziegler and a dude named Mark, because they got some experimental bio stuff on them. And apparently, last issue, Hawkman had one of his wings ripped off. I didn't mention that because they didn't really point it out. I glanced over it. But now he's sitting at the bottom of a well, detransformed, and he's like, okay, this sucks. I hate this. And the entire inner monologue is saying, here's how Hawkman went from being a Thanagarian to ending up on Earth and thinking he was human. They're trying to actually bridge that gap, which they had never done before. And they basically said, he was a gladiator or whatever, and he fled from that planet once he was accused of killing the king or whatever. He ended up on Earth in the middle of a hurricane. The storm knocked him off course, and he had like amnesia or whatever, and all he could remember is his own name of Qatar Hall, which the doctors and nurses mistook to be Carter Hall, and so then he just became a person and learned archaeology and went to college and did all the other stuff. So that's how we bridge that. Amnesia. Anyway, he's down at the bottom as well. He's not feeling great. He doesn't want to transform again because he thinks, oh no, what if I'm still missing my wing? I will be useless. So he pulls out his cell phone, tries calling the JLA, but he's at the bottom of a well, so there's no signal. So he starts trying to climb up the edge of the well. His nth metal keeps on trying to come out, and he's just like, nope, I'm not going to. That's too traumatic right now. Not going to do it. And then he falls back down to the bottom again. Meanwhile, at the top, hulked out Ziegler and hulked out Mark are fighting each other because Mark wants Emma, and Ziegler's like, no, I have to protect my daughter. So eventually Hawkman gives in with like a little bit of the nth metal, and he's allowed to make claws, which make it easier for him to fly or jump out of the well. And when he gets up to the top, he finally dials for Amanda Waller, and she's like, what do you need, Hawkman? And he's just like, send people help. And then he collapses from exhaustion and goes unconscious. And then the nth metal starts taking over and puts him in a cocoon. So anyway, the fight between Mark and Ziegler goes on. Mark has the upper hand. Emma's freaking out and is asking the doctor, like, how do we stop him? What do we do? And he's like, I don't know. This was never supposed to be part of Project Blockbuster. And she's like, dude, you named it Blockbuster and you didn't think this was bad? And he's like, no, you don't understand. It's about breaking down the blocks in your mind from Alzheimer's disease. And she's like, that's a stupid reasoning. But regardless, what do we do to stop Mark? And he pulls out a medallion that Mark's dad gave him and says, here, maybe you can like reach down inside him and do the whole sun's getting real low thing. So she walks up and confronts Mark, and she's like, hey, you want to calm down, big guy? Look at this medallion. Your dad always said that you were special. And he's like, special? Oh, yeah, no. You think I'm too dumb to know what special means? It means anything but. And so he freaks out, and he's about to attack Emma. And then the cocoon all of a sudden just breaks open, and coming out of it, he comes Hawkman in new super battle armor. Buy your toys now. And he says, the Carter Hall is dead. Qatar Hall is all that remains. And he says, release the woman or face me. And Emma's like, you look different and you sound different and you like are barely acting human anymore. What's up, Carter? And he's just like, screw it, enough talk. And he goes and attacks Blockbuster because, of course, he took the name Blockbuster. And Blockbuster's, laying down all the hits, doing everything he can, but like nothing is actually affecting Hawkman anymore in his new battle-ready form. Dr. Ziegler collapses and starts like going into a seizure. And as he's like shrinking down, he's like, where's Carter? He has to provide for you and protect you. And she's like, I can protect myself, Dad. Don't worry about him. Plus, I think he's gone. So the fight between Hawkman and Blockbuster is epic and amazing and super cool and whatnot. Ziegler shrinks back down to normal size. Turns out he's fine. He's cool. But then Emma's like, oh, does that mean Mark's going to shrink down soon too? And he's like, probably not, considering your dad had 1 dose and Mark had several hundred. So at that point, Blockbuster's got Hawkman's head in his hands. He's like, oh, might is right. Nothing could stop me. And Hawkman's like, psh, you claim you're invincible. Let's see how true that really is. And he throws a punch and just knocks Blockbuster like 500 feet into the air, where Green Lantern catches him, Simon Baz from the Justice League of America. And he's like, yep, nope, we're here. We'll take care of him. So Emma calls up Hawkman on a cell, and she's just like, hey, we need to come down and give our witness statements, but like you need to give yours as Carter Hall. And he's like, that's not really gonna work for me. I gotta go with the JLA to take care of some stuff, and then also I think I just need some time to sort things out as to who I really am now. And she's like, oh well, when do you think you'll be back? He's like, don't know. Right now, all of my attention goes to my prime initiative of the Justice League of America. The end. So yeah, he gave up his humanity. It's sad. Of course he did. It's, Carter Hall died and he became Hawkman entirely. And to be fair, okay, I think it's the best kind of way to end this book where there actually is some sort of change, because otherwise, what's the alternative? Is that he just maintains his humanity as he has since issue 1. I like the fact that we're ending off this series with a big transition of the character, and then JLA will hopefully explore that more and give him time to be like, oh, he's truly is just this alien who's brutal and merciless. So I enjoy that idea. Overall, this book has kind of just been a weird ride because it felt like they had an idea as to what they wanted to do in the beginning. And then Rob Liefeld jumped in and was just like, actually, he's an alien. And then everything after that was just kind of dealing with, crap, how do we square that circle? Which isn't that just Hawkman in a nutshell? That the writers just can't get a grip on what they want to do with him. And in the end, it just ends up being a little bit of a mess. So in the end, this is the quintessential Hawkman run, in that it does all of that. I'm going to give this one specifically I'll give it like a 7. No, I'll give it a 6.5. I think that the Cocoon thing was kind of dumb. Especially because it only lasted for like 1 page and just, oh no, he's all healed and also has new battle-ready armor. Yeah, it's a bit dumb, but it was enjoyably dumb at the very least. So 6.5. And goodbye to the Savage Hawkman. All-Star Western number 20, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Moritat. So last issue, Booster Gold became sheriff of a small town, and a group named the Clem Hootkins Gang came in and robbed the town and killed a bunch of people. So now Booster Gold is asking for Jonah's help to go get Clem Hootkins. This issue picks up and Clem's dead. His whole gang has been killed in a satanic ritual sacrifice by some other people that we have never met before, one of whose name is Romeo and his girl Damita. Okay, so just accept that happened. The only one left alive is the dwarf in their group, but regardless, so Jonah and Booster are just riding their horses down, and Jonah's calling him out for what he wears. He's like, hey, how do you pee in that thing? And Booster's like, seriously? That's your only question here. He's like, well, it's just, I don't get it. I'm looking up and down here, and I see no way that is a functional uniform. And he's just like, okay, well, you would weep if you knew what yoga pants were. So at that point, they come across a pit with a bunch of bodies in them, and Jonah recognizes like, oh, it's the Clem Hootkins gang. Well, they've all been killed, and I'm only here to pick up the bounty for them, so I'm just going to cut off each of their heads and take them in for me anyway. And Booster's like, first off, that's absolutely disgusting, and I'm going to throw up. Second, what about the gold? What about the gold that was robbed from my town? And he's like, I never said I would help with that. I said I would help find you the Clem Hootkins gang. Here they are. We're done now. And Booster's like, okay, fine. How about I pay you? We get the gold back. You will get some percentage of it. And he's like, all right, how much percent are you willing to offer? He's like, how much do you want? As much as it takes to get the job done. So they ride a bit further in, and Booster just keeps on complaining repeatedly, like, man, when I came from, there were roads, and on these roads, you'd be able to stop anywhere for like a cheeseburger. See, that's what I want right now, a cheeseburger. And also these horses, they suck, they smell, and they're gross. And Jonah just tells him, dude, shut up. Shut your face. So then we go into town where these guys who killed the Clem Hootkins gang are chilling, and Damita and Romeo are lying in bed with the dwarf in a cage because why not? And the woman's like, you know, when I first met you, I thought you were ugly. But now I've got you known you, I think you're the ugliest man that ever lived. And Romeo's like, I'm not sure I like this pillow talk. And she's like, no. See, my mom really liked ugly guys. And it's like, you know, your hands are huge and you could like crush a man in between them. And like, the only thing that's missing from you right now, Romeo, is like a real good scar. Can I scar you, Romeo? Can I do that? And he's just like, you're messed up, but like, sure, why not? Just don't mess with my eyes. I need my eyes. And so she's like, oh, don't worry. I'm going to start by writing my name into your chest, as she pulls out a knife. So clearly they're all very messed up. So night's fallen. Jonah and Booster arrive in town. Booster's using his thermal goggles, and he tells Jonah, like, up there's 24 people, 15 guys, 9 women. They're hiding there, and there. And he's like, how the hell do you know all that? And he's like, it's part of the goggles. And Jonah's like, give me the goggles. Let me see. He's like, no. It's part of the suit. All this is all wired up as one. So Jonah's like, okay, well, we'll go in. We'll shoot. You can tell me where they are. I will shoot them all up. We'll take the treasure and we'll go. But Booster doesn't want to kill anybody. He's like, look, I know a lot. I don't remember a lot about my time before coming here, but I know I'm not a murderer. Nobody's going to die tonight. And Booster's like, they have guns. Somebody's going to die tonight, and either it's you or them. And so Booster says, okay, well, what if we just wait until they're asleep and then sneak in? And he's like, you're more than welcome to, but sneaking is not my thing, so I'll hang back here. So night falls, Booster sneaks in. The dwarf is still awake, and so as he goes in to try to get the treasure, the dwarf's like, hey, let me out of here. Help me out. And he's like, hey, I'll come back for you. Just let me get this treasure first. Dwarf just starts yelling like, hey, wake up. He's stealing your treasure. He's not going to set me free, so why should I care? But it turns out that they're too drunk and asleep that they're not actually waking up. So Booster's like, you suck so much, but I'm still going to be back for you to bring you to justice. And as he walks out the door, he sees that they did manage to wake up everyone besides Romeo and Demita. And they all open fire and just start shooting at Booster. Turns out, though, Booster's suit is bulletproof. So he just takes all the bullets, he stands up, and he's like, well, I hope you all learned a valuable lesson here. I'm the sheriff of this little town over here, and don't you dare come to it again, or else I'll have to really show you what for. Also, I'm taking the Gatling gun you guys stole and the dwarf who was running it. Have a nice day. And so he takes them both and goes back out. Sun's rising, and Jonah's like, dear Lord, I actually thought you were dead. Like, I have no idea how you managed to pull that off. And he's like, all right, there's one more thing we got to take care of. I'm going to kill the dwarf, and I'm taking him in for the bounty. And Booster's like, well, now, hold on. I'll pay you the bounty, but he's going to go and face justice. We're not just going to kill people we don't like, Jonah. And so they ride off and they do their thing. But then apparently Romeo wakes up the next morning and he's like, what do you mean you all shot him? And he didn't die. And they're like, he's bulletproof, man. We could not do anything. And Romeo freaks out and he's like, well, you tell me where he was. You tell me what town he came from. I'm going to shoot this Booster Gold in the face and see how well he actually deals. So Booster's troubles are not over yet. So can I just point out here that I spent a lot of last issue praising, like, oh yeah, I really like this Clem Hootkins gang. Like, they got a lot of crazy things going on. I like the way they're doing it. And then they're just killed immediately as soon as I open up this book. Like, that takes some balls. I'll give the writers that. I did not see that coming. But this group that they spent the entire issue of like, yeah, you don't mess with the Clem Hootkins. Oh, apparently you do. You do, and then they are immediately replaced by what is apparently an even more terrifying gang. So, yeah, I don't know. I enjoy the fact that caught me off guard, but at the same time, it just feels weird now that we spent an entire issue pumping them up for them to get so unceremoniously taken down. I like all the Booster moments. I like how he was set up. He didn't know his own power set. He's like, yeah, no, I didn't know I was bulletproof, so that's neat. So I'm enjoying all of it. It's a nice little fun story. Yeah, there's not much more to really say about it. It's stupid fun, but it is still fun. So I will give this one I'll give it just a flat 7. I think I still, as much as I like that it caught me off guard, it does still come across as like a bit of whiplash in writing. I don't know. I think I would have enjoyed it just a little bit more if we could even see how they got captured. rather than just, turns out they're weaker than you thought they were. So, yeah, 7 for this. Teen Titans number 20, written by Scott Lobdell, art by Eddie Barrows. So, last issue, Trigon showed up, attacked a bunch of people, Beast Boy was there, and then Beast Boy fought against Szymon, who said drop dead, and then a bunch of soldiers all died, and everyone was sad about it. This issue, first and foremost, opens up on a cover of Robin being, like, evil, and it says, like, oh, Robin's, like, super bad this guy. No, he's barely in it. He's barely in the comic at all, and he does nothing but say good things the entire time. So I have no goddamn idea where they got this idea that Robin's evil. Regardless, we pick up, and yeah, everyone's just like, Szymon, you killed all these soldiers. And Simon's like, the soldiers were here to lock us up. I don't know, like, I just defended myself. And they're like, no, they were here to fight the giant demon monster thing. It had nothing to do with you, you idiot. And he's like, oh, well, if you're just gonna call me names, you can go ahead and drop it. And he's about to kill, what's-her-name, Solstice. And then Kid Flash runs in and just starts bashing his head into the ground, just like, don't you even think that. So Simon's knocked out as Kid Flash is pulled off him by Superboy. And then they all turn to Raven. They're like, hey, Raven, where's your dad? And he's like, I don't know. My dad could be anywhere. And Wonder Girl doesn't take that too kindly. Just like, oh, of course you know where your dad is. You're both evil in the same sorts of ways. So then we get what this issue actually is, which is we see Trigon down in the Underrealms. He's like torturing his eldest son for no reason because he's just that evil. And he's like, oh, my daughter, how dare she betray me at my finest moment, throwing her lot in with these children. And they're all like, hey, Dad, why do you like your daughter more than you like us? And he's like, shut up. I'll tell you why. And the next, 10 pages are just, here is how Raven came to be. So Trigon has always been Trigon, and he ruled over all these different realms, and he eventually got bored of ruling, so he went out and just fought battles and such, but then he eventually got bored with that. So then he's like, well, I turned my tools towards deception and seduction, and he seduced this one woman who was Raven's mom in order to have a daughter, because he never had a daughter. He had tons of sons, no daughters. And he let the mother live because he wanted the daughter to learn compassion as like a human would, so that she can learn creation instead of destruction, as all part of his mastermind plan. And then she bailed and took refuge in a place called Azarath because they had this notion in Azarath of universal peace, and he didn't even think to look there. And so they cleared out Raven's darker side, like they took out the fire from her heart, taught her all this knowledge stuff, and then she one day got really guilty that she was putting everyone at risk, and she went back down to Earth to hide. And then she did that for a couple of years. The Phantom Stranger met up with her and then immediately just delivered her to Trigon. And that was like issue 1 of Phantom Stranger. And then that was like a few weeks ago on Earth, but it's been however long here in the Underrealms, and so she has fought countless battles by Trigon's side. Her bloodlust has been reignited. She is back to being evil and powerful and whatnot. And so Trigon gives her a realm to rule over, and she's like, oh, and one day we will take over Earth, and that will be your true realm, the one that you will rule with an iron fist. And she's like, thank you, Papa. But then as she's sitting there, she's like, it's so lonely here. Like, I seek not those I rule, but companionship. Not lovers, but peers. Not friends, but allies. Like, she still is evil, but she's still not, like, totally evil. So she's looking to just not be alone. And that's when she came across, in her visions, the Teen Titans. And she's like, maybe these will be my buddies. So at that point, the eldest son freaks out from the story, and he's like, this is all stupid. That was you're stupid, Trigon. And he goes and attacks him. Trigon just bats him away. And he's just like, oh, I'm sorry, Dad. I don't know what came over me. I was just, you rule, Trigon. You're so cool. And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. Anyway, you know what you got to do. Go do it. And they're like, yep, sorry, we'll be done. So they all teleport out. And we see Trigon still looking at Raven in his little scrying pool thing. So at that point, basically everyone starts coming to their senses. Like Beast Boy wakes up and he's like, oh, hey, Teen Titans, I remember you from the culling. And then I have to remember the culling, so screw you. And Wonder Girl is still not believing that Raven has no idea what's going on. Just like, you know what's happening. You know at least where we can start to find Trigon. Like, tell us what's up. And she's like, no, I don't know what's up. And she's like, well, you're a liar. And Raven doesn't take too kindly to that. She goes and she's about to attack Wonder Girl. And she's like, you don't talk to me that way. I'm the daughter of Trigon. And Wonder Girl's like, yeah, well, I'm the daughter of Helena Sandsmark. And she punches Raven in the face. And Raven's like, okay, yeah, sorry about that. Don't know what came over me. Got a little bit iffy. And then Bunker's like, well, guys, if we're still looking for Trigon, I've got a good guess. As he points across the battlefield and we see Raven's three brothers saying like, hey, little sis, you had your fun. Time to come home. So that's the issue. I am appreciative that they took the time to give us a Raven origin story. What I'm not appreciative of the fact is that they did it via the worst in-story means imaginable of, hey, Dad, why don't you tell us why you like our sister? As if Trigon had, he's just recounting all the things that they would already know. Like, clearly this would have come up at some point. Instead of telling it to, like, I don't know, Beast Boy, or to anyone else. Trigon couldn't just talk to literally anybody except for the people that should already know this. It's just, I hate that level of exposition dump, where if you're telling somebody in the story who, like, wouldn't know it, it's not as good. Or it's not good, but it's not as bad as this. Whereas these people should clearly already know this. So yeah, overall, I mean, it's a boring issue. Like, we get in maybe like a quarter of a fight, and then it's just expositing like crazy. So I'm going to throw this in like a 4. I'm so done with this series, and it just keeps going. I don't know why. So yeah, 4 for this, and we'll see what happens with Raven next time, I guess. Who cares? Justice League Dark number 20, written by Jeff Lemire and Ray Fox, art by Miguel Janin, and finishes by Vicente Cifuentes. So, last issue, Dr. Destiny stole the House of Mystery, put the entire world into nightmares, Swamp Thing got kidnapped, and Frankenstein met up with the Flash. I think that's everything. So this issue, we meet back up with Swamp Thing and Dr. Destiny. Destiny's just like throwing out biblical scripture because of course he can. And he's like, yeah, no, everything sucks and I love it this way. The whole world's one big nightmare. And Swamp Thing is just forced to sit there and listen. And he's like, dude, you suck so hard. Cut over to Frankenstein and Flash. They're fighting what appears to be the son of Frankenstein. And even Frankenstein's like, yeah, my ex-wife wouldn't go down that easy. And I've already dealt with my son, so this probably isn't real. And as the son lunges after Flash, he phases through it. And in phasing through it, the sun just explodes into like a pile of mist. And he is like, huh, okay, well, it seems that these are kind of like hard light constructs, the same sort of way that like Green Lantern has. And so if I just vibrate my frequency at a certain pitch, it'll just destroy them. They just immediately break. And he does it to the body of the ex-wife, and it's just like, yeah, okay, well, that happened. And then Frankenstein's like, oh, cool, well, that's easy. By the way, how did you even find me? And Flash says, oh, well, I was heading back to Central City when all of a sudden nightmares all over the world, and I was going to call Justice League for backup, but then I picked up on your signal down here. And sorry for fighting you at first, but you know, you're not really looking like the hero type. And at that point, Frankenstein's like, wait a minute, I don't have a tracker, unless, did Steve Trevor put trackers on us last arc? That son of a bitch. So, yes, they have those. Frankenstein then says, all right, look, whatever. Next thing we got to do is find Xanadu because she can help us find the rest of everybody else. And Flash is like, oh yeah, we got a file on her in the Justice League. I'll just go get her real quick. And just zoops away, zoops back. She's got Xanadu. And took care of all of her nightmare stuff in the meantime. And Frankenstein's like, Flash, look, I appreciate it, buddy, everything you're doing here, but this is magic, so please stop running off because you don't know how to fight magic. So at that point, Swamp Thing is still talking to Dr. Destiny, and he's like, dude, I'm done with it. I'm not listening to this anymore. He rips himself off of the wall and starts to, like, go up to Destiny to beat the crap out of him. And the Destiny says, burn. And then all of a sudden, Swamp Thing starts burning. And he's like, oh, this is your fear? This is what you're afraid of? All right, then keep burning. And so then, as he's burning, just slaps him back onto the wall and says, all right, well, I got other stuff to do now. So we see Deadman is stuck in his nightmare carnival, and he's like, guys, you can't hurt me, I'm a ghost. And then they hurt him, and he's like, oh, God, this is a nightmare. And as he's being attacked, Frankenstein and Xanadu show up, and they start throwing punches and stuff like that. And then, like, what happened to Flash? And then Flash runs in, completely annihilates all of them, and says, sorry, had to save some people on the way over here. Nice to meet you, Deadman. And Tin Man's like, oh my God, Constantine's gonna love you. You're so innocent looking. Do you smoke? So then we see what Constantine's doing. He's battling some blood versions of himself. But battling is a weird way to say it in that they're kind of just telling Constantine, hey, we're going to be the darker side of you, and we're going to go out and kill a bunch of people. And Constantine's like, yeah, well, try this on for size. And then before he gets to do anything, Flash runs in, is about to attack them, but one of the Constantines throws a cigarette, which I guess explodes, and throws Flash off his game. So then they surround Flash. They're about to attack him. Flash rushes out through one of them, and I guess one of the blood Constantines causes a freezing spell or something, so now Flash is frozen solid. So the rest of the Justice League Dark show up. They all start attacking the blood Constantines. And Constantine's like, guys, I literally was about to solve this. I know, like, what kind of spell they are. I'm just going to call them back into me because they're made of my blood. And so he recounts the spell, and he just pulls them all back in. He's like, yeah, thanks for the backup, I guess, but I would have been fine. So they unfreeze Flash. And Constantine's like, yeah, I know who you are. Like, what are you even doing here? And they all start ganging up on Constantine of like, yeah, this is all your fault. Like, you're the one who lost the House of Mysteries. Maybe we should leave you behind. Flash is much cooler anyway. I'd much rather have Flash with me. And Flash is like, please don't put me in the middle of whatever this is. But also, I think we should probably keep Constantine along if it is something that is actually his fault. And so they're like, fine, whatever. We can keep Constantine around for now. And so basically they say, all right, we have to find the House of Mystery. It could be anywhere. Flash, why don't you go looking for it? And so Flash runs off to start looking for it. And they're like, Constantine, come on. It's literally a magic house. It could be anywhere. It could look like anything. You just sent him off on a wild goose chase. And then he immediately comes back and be like, all right, it's on 90th Street up in the penthouse. And immediately everyone's like, Jesus Christ, we need to keep Flash around. Can we get him from Justice League? Can we just do that? So they make their way over to where it is. We see that it's covered in like woods and vines and stuff because Swamp Thing's involved. Frankenstein and Flash are going to stay down on the street and take care of people trying to get inside while the rest of the group goes up inside. And when they get to the elevator, they see that there's a picture inside the elevator of Xanadu with a baby. And she's like, well, that's not possible or good. I don't know what this means. And so when they get up to the top floor, Dr. Destiny's there. He immediately zaps Deadman and Constantine, takes them off the board, and then he turns to Xanadu and be like, here's the thing. You can't stop me. You couldn't see me in your visions, and you know why? It's because I am the horror that you created, mother. Dun, dun, dun. So yeah, Dr. Destiny is the son of Xanadu. Which I gotta say, I didn't see coming. I maybe that's just a bit of DC lore I've always overlooked, or maybe this is a new thing, but I did not see that one coming. So yeah, this was a solid issue. I think Flash adds a lot of levity to it. That in these sort of like, this goes back to that first arc where Enchantress was like doing crazy things and making all this stuff go horrible, but there wasn't any levity to it except for Deadman trying to have a threesome. I remember that part, but there wasn't like an overarching levity to it. Flash adds that in, and I appreciate him here. I think that this is, in terms of an unnecessary crossover, this one at least makes it work. Like, I don't know why Flash is here, but he makes it work, and I like the way he's written. So yeah, I'm gonna give this one a, I'll give it a solid 8 in that I like Flash being here, and I also like the twist at the end. There's very little in this that is actually bad. Like, I don't think there really is anything, but it also doesn't have that extra it factor to get it up to like a 9 or a 10. I think that it's just a nice solid issue that boosts its way up to an 8. And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this May 22nd, 2013. And I say that like it's some super small amount of comics, as if this weren't the longest episode I've ever had by far. And that being said, I haven't edited this episode yet, clearly, since I'm still recording it, but it could come down to be like 2 hours long, maybe. Doubt it. I'm pretty sure it's much longer than that, but it could be, and then boy oh boy will I have egg on my face. Anyway, I still want to try to keep this brief, so I'm just going to rush through this ending bit here. Next week is a 5th week, which means annuals and backups. So in terms of annuals, we have 4 of them. We have Batman the Dark Knight, annual number 1, Catwoman, annual number 1, Red Hood and the Outlaws, annual number 1, and Earth 2, annual number 1. Additionally, we have Justice League of America number 4 has been delayed onto this week, and then we just have 5 months worth of backups. So many backups that it's probably going to be another like 2.5 hour long episode, because DC just hates me. They looked into the future. They saw I was doing this 10 years down the road, and they said, yep, let's mess with that guy, because I had a lot to do this weekend, but I don't want to get into it because I just want this episode to end. So, if you would like to share any of your thoughts on this episode, next episode, last episode, or my declining mental state, go ahead and hit us up on Twitter, Patreon, Discord, Patreon, Reddit, or Patreon. All of those are options in the description or wherever it is you're viewing this. But speaking of which, thank you for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. I really do appreciate it, and it almost makes it worth it. Almost. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you again. Be sure to tune in next week's episode for all the zany backup stories we get to cover. And as always, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.